It's a charming quality to have in a podcast. You like to hear the go.
It just it lends an element of realism, right?
It's like pre-distressed jeans. We could just be like purely woven. Denim, but that's a horrible metaphor.
Is denim woven?
I don't know. Shut up.
What?
No, I was like, I literally don't know. Like, how is denim made?
Let's get into that.
Well, it was created like denim jeans was created because from what I learned in high school, which a lot of stuff I learned in high school was wrong, but somebody was like, man, I can use a really good pair of jeans because he was a tent maker, so he just turned that tent into jeans, and then he died, and then his prodigy was going to take over his business, and they took the Titanic and died on the Titanic. So.
No way.
Wait, what?
Yeah, that's what my high school teacher told me.
Is that fucking true? Yeah.
This is the history of jeans?
Yeah, I'm going to look that up right now. So
the history of jeans. So how did the tent maker do it? I guess
that was the tent maker because everybody had fucking tents already. Wait, can I cuss on this?
Yes, you can fucking swear all you fucking want.
So
go ahead, go off, King.
They had enough tents because they had enough gold near the river, so they just. I could be totally wrong about that. There was so much stuff I learned in high school that was wrong later on, so I could be talking up my ass right now.
Yeah, fucking Columbus, man. Am I right?
Yeah, dude.
Shout outs to Columbus Day. Just kidding.
Wait, so is that why? Is that when you get a boner in your jeans? It's called tenting.
Yes,
maybe. Full circle.
Oh shit!
If you can get a jeans boner, it's powerful. That's one that shouldn't go to waste.
But
that's more like if you're 17 and you're first getting boner, or not first getting boners, but you got some young boner happening.
Time out. Okay, listen. I will approve incest talk on this podcast because of the book we're talking about today. But I will not. Yeah, exactly. But I will. Paul does. But I will not approve. You have a sister.
Oh yeah.
That's just a fact. But I will not approve 17-year-old boner talk. That's banned. At least, why'd you have to say 17? You couldn't have just said 18.
It was when I was 17.
I know. In some states it's
my
16,
own boner.
But
that's true.
That's true. But we're all in different states, so I think that's a federal thing now.
Right.
Yeah.
You can citizens arrest Paul, or I don't know what can happen here.
I can feel the FBI van pulling in.
Or just tuning in.
We've already just fucking spiked this whole episode. It's just going to get deleted from everywhere.
Well, this is good. I mean, this is a great segue, right? Because, surveillance and the FBI, these are conspiratorial elements in the culture.
Yes. What a segue. What a segue. Wait, I just want to be clear, though. Is denim cotton or what? Like, what is it made out of?
It's made out of denim.
Is it? Okay, so it's like a sui generis thing?
No, it's cotton.
Oh, it is cotton.
Oh, you're a little muted, dude.
Yeah, you must have covered your...
Oh, yeah.
How about now?
There you go.
Yeah.
That's better.
I barely did anything, but okay.
I think you just covered your mic or something.
I don't think so. My mic's up here.
This is whatever this is the juice.
I'll just leave it. The Jews?
No, Jesus.
God, Gabe, what the hell?
No, fuck.
Wow. Your first Jewish guest on here, and you do that question off the
Wow.
Oh, fuck me.
So we got a few
Gabe's
JQs
canceled.
for you. Yeah.
Gabe is muted the rest of the episode.
Jesus. All right, so we've already touched on underage sexuality and Jewish jokes. Great. This is great. This podcast is going off on the right foot.
So another relevant topic. How do you guys feel about Afghanistan right now?
Hilarious.
Oh, God.
Hilarious. 20 years down the drain.
Yes. We did touch on that a little bit when we were talking about I guess last week
West?
we talked about it a little bit, right?
I can't
Comment?
remember
you're
if we
talking
did
about
too
that
much.
one thing, this one commission that you guys hated or something like that. I had no idea what it was about. Not commission,
Commission?
but like sorry, I shouldn't say commission with Jews at the same time, but this one industry like
McKinsey
that
and
does, like, a
Company.
lot of-
Oh, McKinsey.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah,
McKinsey
yeah,
Company.
yeah.
I had no idea what that was.
Yes. That's that's just a personal bugaboo, I suppose, or a
As
hobby
Eddie-
horse.
as Eddie-
Bugaboo.
As Eddie Bravo would say, look into it.
I'll look at that later.
Yeah. Hashtag research McKinsey.
So the astute listener will have put the pieces together, McElroy style, and deduced that what we're talking about is Cannonball by Joseph McElroy today.
Yes.
And
And
we also have a guest. They would probably put together
the extra
if
astute
they
listener.
have, if they're YouTubers and listen to BookTube, they'll probably be like, I know that voice from somewhere. Oh, YouTube. And look who it is.
Oh, is that my
YouTube
cue?
star.
Yes, we have.
Floor is yours.
We are blessed today to have Ben from the Bookshore channel on YouTube. I don't think this is out of line to say BookTube's foremost McElroy expert on the podcast this evening to talk about McElroy. So
I hate that nomination of the McElroy, because like, oh yeah, the McElroy scholar. I'm like, "Rrr." But like, I think it just might be true just because nobody else has read his whole over.
listen, listen.
That's it.
A win by TKO is still a win, isn't
Yeah,
it?
there you go. Yeah. It's like I always say, you either be a cheater or a loser.
That's right.
That's right.
So,
But
Ben, welcome. Thank you so much for being here. We really appreciate it,
Thanks.
man.
I appreciate you letting me come on, and actually have a cool McElroy announcement. I'm working with Nick Voro, who had a little bit of communication with McElroy in the past, and he has 5 super rare McElroy short stories that I missed that he's helping me get, and so I can review for the channel as well. So
No
expect
shit.
5 more McElroy videos. Yeah, they're
Like
not actually
unpublished or
published like in like weird ass one-off magazines and stuff like that.
hell yeah.
And like there's one that's super rare that he has access to. Like he found it. I don't know if I can say it, but I'm just gonna say it anyway. He found it on microfilm, and like he transcribed it for McElroy, and we're gonna try to that one's not in the 5 right now because we're just gonna try to get permission from McElroy to see if we can make it available to everybody and everything. But there's no promises on that. We don't even know if we can get a hold of McElroy. So, but there's previous
He's still
communication
living-
with him and everything.
He's still living in New York City?
Yeah, he's next to you guys. Yeah.
You heard it here first, folks. That's fucking breaking news
Wow.
on
Exclusive.
in the literary world on the Spine Crackers podcast.
Yeah, and give thanks to Nick Voro. That's Nick and then Voro. He's on Instagram. He has a self-published book that came out just recently, also.
Oh no shit! Shout outs to Nick
yeah.
Voro.
Sweet.
Any sort of association with Dzonk Books that put out this edition or anything like that, or no?
Like with me?
No, like I don't know, him and the sort of 5 short story like project.
Oh no. Nick Voro is just a big McElroy fan, and he just like he was telling me this shit like he expected me to know about it, but like but what he does is just he just calls libraries and just tries to find this stuff and everything. He just found these 5 stories. I was like,
Yes.
dude, I don't even know what you're talking about right now, but I'll read them.
That's fucking wild, dude.
Yeah,
That's the
and
kind of
one
energy
them-
we need more of.
Yeah, and that's really cool. And one of them I was getting a little confused, but like one of them, it might be in tandem with character with a book that McElroy's been writing, I think since 18 or something like that. So like one of his unpublished works that might not be finished. Like it's like that one, the character in Night Soul is supposed to be like excerpts from the book or something. But we never know how much has changed with McElroy and like him writing for so many years.
Right.
Yeah,
That's-
and I'll try to get that all together for my videos.
So these are basically the undiscovered scrolls that have been ferried in the underground wells and waterways of McElroy through history that you are unearthing along with Nick.
I have no idea what you're referencing.
We might as well call you Zach.
Just kidding. Zach. No, yeah, exactly. And actually, they're not even on his wiki. They're just like, he found because like McElroy published like a list of his works and stuff like that, and of all his publications. So it's only on McElroy's website and how he found it and everything. So, yeah.
That's honestly sick. I cannot wait to hear about these, or knock on wood, read a couple eventually.
Oh, I'm gonna ask him if we can get him like kind of like with the Disconnected to see if we can make it available in the Google Drive as well. But again, we might just have to talk to McElroy. So there's no promises on any of these, just promises on like 5 short stories for sure.
That's sick.
Still.
I mean, that's a huge service. So, shout outs.
Oh, thanks. Oh, thanks. I that's my goal with this stuff, just to make it more available to the public and make people more aware of this. That's like one of the main reasons I kind of want to get a bigger channel, just so stuff like this I can make it just more open to people and they can recognize it and everything.
Yes.
Because McElroy deserves, I'm sure as you guys read from this novel, deserves a lot more attention.
Yeah, he's one of those. We'll get into it, but he seems like like very underread, frankly.
I mean, that's why I picked it. Because
Oh yeah, it's your pick.
there are a
Matt.
couple.
Why'd you pick this book?
There are a couple names that like bubble up, especially when you're in the sort of like book, whatever, like social media sphere. Like I feel like there's these people that keep getting touted as like underappreciated, completely unpublished, kind of prohibitively expensive, editions floating around. I think the first person, like Theroux or you know, the mysterious Evan Dara, you just think of like people like this. And I just, not that they're similar in sort of like their writing styles, but in terms of like just not being widely available and kind of mysterious and thought of as like underappreciated. Like McElroy is in that group.
And it's funny because like, I don't know if you guys did what I did, but you go under like list of like toughest authors or toughest books you can find, and like none of these guys are like ever on there. Like I only heard about this McElroy when I got on Instagram.
Right. Which is interesting because I think when you do look at those lists, you see it just tends to be like some obvious choices, Joyce, Infinite Jest, and then just like a couple random like very long books that are not particularly difficult per se.
Like,
Right.
Well, Matt, I remember when we were talking about this a while ago, you said that difficult books tend to be like classified if they're super long and they just have a lot of vocabulary words that you don't know, that you have to look up. And I think
that's
we've
another
kind of made... I just feel like we've kind of made the case that like the more difficult books for me is like the way a book is written.
Which
Case in
would
point,
not just the
this
vocabulary,
evening.
and not just like a lengthy book.
This might
Well,
be one of the
that's-
like.
Okay.
Oh, go for it.
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
Okay, so
Yeah.
that's what I felt about. I had a little bit of back and forth with Lookout Cartridge, because like that's only around the 500-page mark, and the big three before you get into Finnegan's Wake territory, which is also aka bottom stream territory, is like Gravity's Rainbow, Ulysses, and Infinite Jest. And I never felt Infinite Jest belonged there. I'm really not a fan of it.
No.
I'm glad you guys agree as well. So it just kind of felt like it protect there, but I would replace Infinite Jest with Lookout Cartridge. But Lookout Cartridge is only 500 pages, so it doesn't meet the length, but it's like, hey, this definitely deserves to be there. Also, Infinite Jest knocked off Lookout Cartridge if you read that book.
The entertainment, right? Like the sort of entertainment.
Yes.
idea of,
looking for a lost film and everything like that. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I'm actually doing I'm reading Infinite Jest now currently for the first time actually, and I'm doing shout outs to us. I'm doing vlogs about it over on our Patreon for any of our listeners that want to go watch that. But yeah, I'm only like 200 pages in or something so far, but I don't think it fits in that category at all. No. It's readable. It's entertaining. It's funny. Like it moves. Like I get that there's and maybe we're opening a can of worms here, but sure, of course, right? Like you can go down the rabbit hole, and Wallace uses a bunch of like neologisms, and there's references and stuff like that, and blah 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 blah. But in terms of a reading experience, it's not like overwhelmingly difficult.
Sorry, I was just laughing because your voice got like like more and more raspy.
I've got a big fucking loogie in my throat that I got to
Yeah,
honk.
Oh, those are the worst.
Sounded like you
sounded
were
like-
slowly turning into an old man.
He sounded like Clint Eastwood sort of by the end. He's like,
Yeah,
my Gran
Clint.
Torino. Yeah, just like right at the end there. I think you're right, Paul, because like there's a sort of crass definition of the difficult novel, and this is like a constantly debated whatever blah blah blah, but like, and a lot of the time it is just straight up just like it's long, and I think it is true that like the burden of proof for why you should be reading something goes up like with every 100 pages, like kind of exponentially, in my opinion. But this, for instance, Cannonball. Like, I don't think I've struggled more with the language of something, not because of, like, thesaurus level vocabulary, but just straight up, like,
Just fucking syntax, yeah.
Yeah. That makes Infinite Jest seem like a walk in the park in terms of trying to, like, sort of keep a hold of the text in my head and like what's being referred to, and that was a super interesting experience.
So okay, let's just Matt, like this was your pick. You referenced a little bit about why you picked it, but is there anything else you can say about that? And then, as is the burden of the person who picked the book, it falls on you this week to give a brief plot summary. So, good luck.
Ben can help you out because he's the master. So if you get stuck,
like,
well, Ben, I do actually have like a lot of questions for you, just because like again, this is like my first McElroy, so like
I think this is all of our first, right? Except Ben, obviously.
no, that's my first McElroy also.
Oh well, no, I mean like it's
No
the only
longer.
one that we've read so far.
Oh, yeah.
But yeah,
But
this
I read
was
the
your
book
first in terms of chronology, right?
Yeah.
And you read. I just want to flag. You read all of his work in like what 11 months or some shit.
Yeah, I wanted to do it in less than a year.
That's fucking mental, dude. That's mental.
Yeah, I got burned out super hard, but I really enjoyed the process at the same time.
that's so Joker-fied of you. That's crazy.
yeah.
We're living in society.
We do.
Well, I don't, because I was reading McElroy.
Well, actually, so I actually first have a question for you then, Ben. Is like,
Yeah.
is this representative of the style of everything he does, or like how does this seem in terms of his other stuff?
Yes. So this one is a little bit more Pinchoni-esque or whatever. But like in terms of syntax and stuff like that, yeah, he plays around a little bit more with this. And one of the things I like about this book you get into is that it's kind of like our generation, like with the Afghan war and whatnot, especially with me with SoCal. But like for the most part, yes, some of his older novels are a bit more old man-ish, like Actors in the House, and especially Women and Men. But McElroy's, except for a few novels, McElroy is actually a pretty diverse author as well. Like he definitely has his style, but the way he approaches subject matters and how he approaches the cognition of thought, like when you look at Courageous to Plus and Actors in the House, they're all different approaches. But I would say this is a really good start into McElroy, especially since it's like the cheapest book you can find. Because Ancient History, which is also accessible,
Right.
It's not his best work. He was still developing his style. You can tell from that one.
This is one of the only. I think that's an important point, right? Like this is one of the only like readily available, sort of like still in print,
Oh yeah.
novels of his, right?
Yeah, like everything. Like I got my Heinz Kidnap for like $100, and
Yeah.
I got lucky because big shout out to Bifurcat. You probably heard about him on Leaf by Leaf's channel a few times. After I did Cannonball, like at the end of that video, I'm like, hey, does anybody have a copy of like Plus? I'll buy it from you. And he was like, hey man, I got a copy. It's like, how much, man? No, it's a reader's copy. I'll just give it to you. And he gave me that and Smuggler's Bible, like 2 super rare copies. So once I got both of those, I was like, well, those are like 2 huge, like, because those can go for like $300 online and stuff like that. So I was like, well,
You were like, cha-ching, eBay time.
no, not at all. and like but once I got those, once I got those 2, I was like, well, this guy already helped me out with 2 of the biggest ones. Like, I guess it's just time to go full hog on this and just go for it.
Yeah.
It's an insane amount of reading to be done. The one I was wanted to actually do, to be honest, not this, but I just couldn't find it, was Plus. Like I wanted to read Plus instead of this kind of.
Yeah, that seems like a
one of the
fascinating text.
It's one of the toughest novels I've read, and the language is so simple.
Yeah.
Huh.
Yeah, very simple. It's so different, and I don't think you're supposed to understand everything in there. But again, it's not about that's quintessential McElroy. It's not about understanding everything. It's about the process. Can I mind if I just give a sidetrack and give it a what I think is just a key example of McElroy with that? If that's okay.
I got nowhere to
Yeah.
be.
Do it
Okay,
up.
so in Lookout Characters, they talk about Stonehenge just so much throughout the novel. They just keep referencing it, and I think that's the perfect metaphor for McElroy because we don't know how Stonehenge was built, who built it, or like the reasons it was built, but like it's an important part of our history and having it there, and we study Stonehenge a lot. The process of studying Stonehenge is just as important as why it's there. So we might not know the actual reasons, but in a lot of our life, we the process of studying it is just more important than the actual results at the end of it. Another great example of it to real life: if you go through a breakup, you're not with that chick anymore. It's like, man, why did that not work out? You have to
Never happened to anybody here, so.
Yeah. I'm sorry,
I've
y'all
never
just,
even
like,
had
chatting.
sex.
I pick you. But like, it just like you go through that, like, you go through a bad friendship or something, and it's like, I don't know, and it just kind of ends like that. It's like, I don't know why it ended, but like I still have to live my life, and that hurdle is still there, so you have to come to some sort of conclusion on that. And oftentimes the process of figuring out why it happened or what happened is more important than the end solution, just like with Stonehenge. And that's if you carry that throughout a lot of McElroy, it makes sense, and you don't get answers to certain things. That's why, because the process is more important than the actual end step. And because in human history, in life, and knowledge, we'll never know everything, and there's so many gaps to knowledge if you actually look at it, the overview of that.
I don't want to open up like another can of worms because, I might, but that like I watched your video on your Murakami from like loving him to hating him, which I know is great. Like,
that is a can of worms.
but like that's how I feel about Murakami though too in a lot of ways. Like his open-ended plot descriptions. What'd you say, Matt?
Nothing.
I'm happy
you
to go
said
down
weak.
this. I got a comment I got to reply to. Like he challenges me also, even though I think he's wrong. But go ahead for this, yeah.
No, I'm just saying like your basic what you
it was
just
a
said
Paul
about,
sock puppet account.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was me.
Well,
But I mean, I agree with you though. Like I like open-ended plots that like don't give you all the answers. That's basically what all I'm saying is that like I like the process of a literary novel over. Yeah.
And I know where you're coming from on that. I just think with Murakami, he's a one-trick pony. Two is that he doesn't do it to focus on the process as much. Well, I guess he kind of does, but like he does it just to be more like to obfuscate and to make it more mysterious.
Well,
Like,
okay, so speaking of plot, which we've already kind of bracketed a bit as maybe less important than some other considerations here. What is this book about broadly? Right? I'll put Matt again on the hot seat because it's his pick, but Ben, obviously, feel free to jump in. Just to sort of orient ourselves in terms of the text, this text. What is this book about? What's going on?
All right, I'll let you know when I've exhausted my ability to try and summarize. There's a young man. His name is Zach. I don't even know if they have a last name. I
don't think
remember.
so.
He was a former in his like early teens. He was like a former high school, I think, like diver who had a sort of accident where he sort of struck the diving board. It made him board shy. He's got a sister who he has a basically incestuous sort of infatuation and relationship with. He has a overbearing.
I think it's important. I just think it's important to flag that relationship is mutual. It's not like he's just creepily perving on his sister, right?
True.
And it's very healthy as well in a lot of ways.
Yes.
I think her
Spine
and
crackers pro incest confirmed.
You can't spell intercourse without incest.
Spine Crackers is pro incest and anti boners.
Wow, confusing. But anyway, so yes, it is a two-way street, so to speak. But yeah, So then there's this father figure who is like a coach of divers, but also was in the Army Reserves or something.
Sort of a shady
Yeah.
figure, right? Yeah.
No, that was General Storm. That was the other guy, right? I think his
Well,
father
there's
was.
Storm Noseworthy, who is like someone his father knows, but I believe it's described as his father having been at some point a member of the military.
But then was
Now-
released from it through presumably shady means.
Okay.
Yeah. And but he still had all these weird connects in D.C. and whatnot, like speechwriters to the president and people who were like kind of shaping public opinion. Meanwhile, the son, for reasons Zach, for reasons that aren't, I don't think ever really totally clear, enlists after high school to go and join what we are to understand as the war in Afghanistan, the war on terror, etc.
Was it? I'm sorry. Just to pause again. I'm sorry. I keep interrupting, but it's Afghanistan, right? Not Iraq, or like that. That was. I don't think that's made explicitly clear in the novel.
Let me check one thing then.
Also, don't feel bad about checking the plot on this. I had to check the plot because there was
Yeah.
one middle section that I thought it was a flashback concurrent with current times, but it confused the crap out of me. It was an explosion scene.
Oh, the whole timeline, the way the timeline plays out in the novel is it's all over the place in
And
terms
that's
of
Quintessential
Iraq,
McAvoy.
Iraq.
Yeah.
It is Iraq. Okay.
Yeah.
And the reason that I kind of was reading it as Iraq is because specifically they talk about a lot of those scenes, like for example the one Ben just referenced, they take place in this palace, and they talk about at some point in the novel, Zach talks about sort of going to get this guy and whatever, and for whatever reason, my brain I read that as talking about Saddam Hussein.
Yes.
Yeah,
And they say
in
cut,
plot
cut the place.
in
and I think
articles I
that's-
read about it, they like explicitly referenced that it was Saddam Hussein. I think a lot of people made that leap.
Wait,
Okay.
I thought it was Umo that he was looking for.
Well, it was just like a throwaway line at one point where like he's like, "Oh, I want to enlist because we got to go, punish this guy or find this guy," and it was in reference to some foreign actor.
Yeah, I'll defer to you just because it's been a year since I've read this book and I was still confused when I read it. So
Yeah,
you guys are
no,
probably more
well,
up to date on the stuff than I am.
That's why I'm asking is it's not clear, right? I think so. It's yeah.
But you also got to be careful because they called Umo, which I know you'll get to. They called him a sumo wrestler in Vice. I'm like, he doesn't do sumo.
Right. Oh, is that
Right.
true?
Yeah.
Yeah, the Vice article, which was an interview with McElroy, said he does sumo. I remember
No.
somebody sent to me like he doesn't do sumo this whole book. He's Chinese.
Yeah.
That was like one of the whole jokes is that
Right.
he's not a sumo wrestler, but they do talk about sumo wrestling, but that's not. Yeah.
In fact, he's a beautiful, graceful diver who has, an amazing ability to sort of carry himself like in a way that belies his corpulent nature or his corpulence physiology.
Which reminded me a bit of like Chris Farley, because my boomer brain went there. But I was like,
Yeah.
Chris Farley was like a big guy that could just like move his body in beautiful, funny ways.
That Chippendales skit, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Umo would be great at physical comedy.
That's true. I guess I don't know. There's not much more for there's a lot of threads that I think we should tease out in actual conversation. But for just like broad strokes plot, Zach goes to this war. Yeah, there's the pivotal scene is this palace scene where he's photographing stuff, and there's an explosion, and he receives a piece of this this sort of ancient artifact that is presumably in this kind of world the cause somewhat of the conflict.
Or just it's or at least a leg of the conflict because it's some lost scroll from the Bible or something like that.
Right.
I actually this was the part of the plot that jumped out to me is that it's
Fave.
Zach and sort of Umo maybe in ways that are never teased out explicitly are sort of instrumental somehow in the United States government gaining kind of access to what is essentially the modern day equivalent of something like the Dead Sea Scrolls, right? And the way that I read it is that these are essentially lost gospels, but they are sort of contemporaneous interviews with Jesus himself, right?
Yeah.
Done by like some sort of obscure like Roman politician's nephew or something like that, if I'm remembering correctly. And what is motivating about these lost gospels, these lost scrolls, because of course the actual gospels, right, were written hundreds of years after Jesus' death. And so these gospels in the text are valuable because they're contemporaneous, right? This is supposedly Jesus' own words transcribed in essentially a sort of interview format. And what
that connection?
Oh, okay. I could be misremembering. Again, there's a lot of like throwaway lines that maybe stuck in my mind in ways that maybe are less relevant than they are for other people. But the takeaway is that Jesus is essentially a sort of like free market libertarian, right? From the content of these scrolls. And so the United States government is very motivated to find them as a sort of justification of Western free market capitalism. And Umo and Zach are kind of wrapped up in this conspiracy to obtain the scrolls in ways that they don't really understand. And I think it's also interesting, and maybe I'll shut up after this, but it's not clear to me in the text, and I think this is really interesting, whether or not the scrolls are even real, or if they're sort of a plant or a sort of psyop, if you will, of the United States government to sort of post hoc justify the war and then also to be used for political purposes.
Yeah, if I could jump in here, like, for the people who haven't read this, like, the scene with the explosion from the palace, it's like the pivotal scene, because like the first half of the novel is really kind of straightforward as a novel in a lot of regards, except for the time skipping. But after that, it's just like all that conspiracy stuff that Gabe talked about, and it can get so overwhelming so quickly. But like you said, you don't know what's real, you don't know what's not real, and McElroy never gives you an explicit answer. And I think, like, kind of like the Stonehenge analogy, that's the point of it. But like the second half of this novel, I struggled with so much, and it was one of those things like, I have to reread this because there's so much that went over my head.
Well, that explosion scene is probably my favorite. You think they're fake?
Yeah, keep going.
It was my favorite scene, probably. I thought it was just like
Really?
such an interesting moment to happen. Just like he sees his friend on a diving board in Iraq. He's just like, what the fuck? And then there's this huge explosion.
Well, and I think just to get into the particularities of that scene a little bit, and then Paul like finish, but like that scene. So like Zach's initial meeting with Umo is at like a public pool, right? And he sees him do this dive off the diving board, and it's like everyone's yelling at him, "Get off, dude! You're fat! Like, why are you on the diving board?" But he does this amazing, graceful dive that produces like no splash, and then he kind of sees him in this moment in Iraq on this internal like indoor swimming pool in Saddam Hussein's palace potentially, and this alludes to the title of the book, right? He jumps off the diving board, and the way that I read it, or at least in my mind, essentially as soon as he hits the water, some type of explosion goes off.
Yeah.
Right? And it's not clear whether he caused it or he was like involved in it, or if it was just a sort of like IED or some sort of outside attack. We have no idea. But yeah, I agree. I think that's one of the most kind of interesting scenes, Paul. Like you were saying.
That's the scene I had to like use the Wikipedia on because I was just so confused because I thought there was a flashback because then it kind of interlocks with the scene where he's talking to that priest after the explosion. The priest who comes out of nowhere and just like, I have these scrolls, take them. It's like, what's happening right now?
Very RPG style, like just sort of like
a quest giver.
It's the first isekai postmodernism.
I mean, I struggled with it too. I struggled with like this whole book for sure. But I like the kind of like the echoes of memory, and just like it kind of played with what you believe to be is what was real and what like, could this be happening in the past? Like, it confused me in a good way. But just to have like Zach's life kind of go upside down in a totally strange way, as seeing like his friend jump off the diving board like he did years ago, or potentially years ago, and then explode. I was just like, what the fuck? What am I reading?
Maybe like if you guys like reconnect with Gabe, it's like, oh, Gabe's back in New York, and he just explodes out of nowhere.
Yeah.
I might
talked
do
to
it.
him for 5 years.
Be a good drink.
But yeah, it's so interesting, right? Because this pivotal moment which is almost in the physical center of the book, it occurs right in the middle. It's such a tonal shift in kind of what happens because, like you said earlier, Ben, the first half of the book is kind of these, ordinary kind of reminiscences about childhood, and there's stuff about Zach's sister and his father and him being on the swim team. And there are a few kind of like menacing like allusions to what's to come. There's an overheard conversation with Zach's father on the phone that is I believe with Storm Noseworthy, who's basically the cigarette smoking man from the X-Files, like the equivalent in this novel.
G-man.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And so there are some hints of what's to come, but the first half of the book is sort of I don't know. It's more kind of like flowy reminiscences of childhood and his sister and all that. And then the second half of the book, after the titular Cannonball, launches into this like wild conspiracy arc, which is very, very different than what came before it.
It like turns into like Foucault's pendulum in a way, just out of nowhere. It's like it's all just conspiracy stuff, and like conspiracy stuff that's not even like based in the real world, but it's all internal. It's all self-referential in the novel. So like they're trying to figure out stuff, but just like us, there's nothing we have to latch on in the real world, so we're just as confused as the main characters.
This is my actual gripe with the book, is that when he veers into this territory.
Spoiler alert: we're only 35 minutes in here, Marl.
Don't tell me a time, okay? Time is immaterial.
Don't tell me a time.
Hey, like McElroy can go back and forth. Like,
True.
Yeah.
That's right. That's a good point.
Yeah.
Don't ground me in some arbitrary number that I don't
Yeah.
understand.
Let's talk about denim again.
Yeah, I'm sorry. You boil it if
Yeah,
you're
let's go
really
back to
into it.
denim.
Yeah.
Shoutouts to who's that, Ben? Maybe you know this guy. Who's the Instagram book guy that's really into denim and jeans?
Oh my God, yeah.
Do you know him?
Motherfucker,
Is it Spare Words? I think it might be Spare Words.
dude is always he's got jeans in his bathtub. He's just like stirring with a stick. He's
Yeah,
like, I love
yeah.
denim.
Let me block this guy really quickly.
Yeah, no, it's Spare Words on Instagram, dude. The dude is a denim junkie. So, hey, if you want to come on the podcast and correct us about denim, please.
He must be so mad right now. He's like, everything's wrong.
I just
I
know
love
it's called.
spine crackers until just this moment. I'm unsubscribing.
Here, I'll win him back. It's true. The sort of creases around your crotch area are called whiskering in the denim community, and the sort of crinkle behind your knee is called honeycombing. I know that from a room.
Damn, okay. That's niche denim knowledge.
I know this guy. He's commented on my Women and Men review, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, he's around.
Yeah, we don't follow each other.
He's a mensch, I think.
Oh, yeah.
Blocked.
My only point though, right, was just that I think, at least for me, in this isolated sort of event of this book, and this is why I wanted to know a little bit about like McElroy's style across his 9 or 10 novels, is like, once he gets into the Pynchon style territory, in my opinion, the sort of like psychological naturalism, in my opinion, kind of started to do a disservice to the story. Like,
What do you mean by psychological naturalism exactly?
like all the stuff you're talking about, like the sort of phenomenological sort of attempt to recreate the experience of consciousness and
Okay,
like memory
yeah.
and all that kind of stuff, and then you get into the nitty gritty of a conspiracy, and that's where the novel kind of lost me, not fully, but just I started to think like, this feels more like a hindrance than something that is like I don't know, roping me in and making me feel like I'm in an experience that like is representative of something true or
Let me say that I can agree with that criticism. This is probably the book where all that where you taught the natural psychology thing, whatever you said, is a lot more separated from the rest of the plot. It's usually a lot more integrated and more based on memory and people's personal experiences. But yeah, this is definitely one where it's just a lot more segmented like that.
Yeah, I guess to that point, Matt, you know, I think that like, right, so, and I don't want to overstate or kind of oversell the Pynchon comparison just because he talks about conspiracy theories or whatever. Like, I think there's distinctions to be made there as well. But in the sense of just the writing style, which I think we probably need to talk about a lot more, you know, McElroy seems to be concerned with capturing, whether it's in memory or in sort of like the actual kind of like flow of experiences. I wouldn't call it stream of consciousness per se, right? But it's concerned with, as you say, a sort of like phenomenological realism, right? About this is kind of the way this thought would naturally occur in a thinking mind, with all of the kind of interruptions and breaks and kind of like non-linear baggage that comes with the way that we just think and experience the world, right? And so in that sense, I think it's attempting to capture a certain type of excuse me, what I would call, like you said, realism or naturalism or something like that. But, you know, and I think this gets to a little bit what Ben was kind of suggesting a second ago, which is that if you're going to do that, and sort of be in a character's mind that way, it helps if the characters are interesting. And I didn't feel that so much with a number of these, with Zach, right, the narrator. The phenomenological richness was there linguistically, and it felt real in terms of this is the way our brains work. This is the way kind of thoughts occur to us, and they're interrupted, and they're messy and whatever. And memory kind of like interjects into our day-to-day experiences and all that. But I wondered if there wasn't some richness lost in terms of like, okay, like I'm in someone's mind, but do I care to be there? I guess, if that makes sense.
Or, you know, that's an interesting point you bring up about McElroy. That can be seen as a criticism, even though I haven't heard it that much, because a lot of his characters, especially the main characters, they're all kind of the same. I again, like I know what you mean. Like McElroy's
another Murakami comparison. Shout outs to Paul.
Yeah, yeah. Well, it's
I regret like, bringing up that beef.
Oh, it's not a beef. It's not a beef, man. You're just wrong. But anyway, no.
Whoa!
Now it's a beef. Now it's a
now it's officially
beef in a shepherd's pie right now.
I just made fucking pulled pork today, dude. That's some pulled pork bark skin.
Again,
go on, those are
jokes. I say I'm Jewish, and now you're talking about pork and everything. No, I'm not that. I'm not really. That.
It's born out of maliciousness, to be clear.
Yeah. But no, it's like his character is like, it's almost like a RPG character, where there's not a lot of stuff attached to them, so you can like insert it. But they do have a long established history. Like in Lookout Cartridge, you barely know anything about the main character, but he's so pivotal in these people's lives, and that's a book where it's I don't know how he does it, but it works well. But in like Woman and Men, like it's called Woman and Men, but my criticism novel should have been called Man, because it focuses on the main character Jim Maine, and Jim Maine was like a wooden block with a face painted on him. So like the whole novel runs on him, and it's like the thing. It says what you want from the book, where it's like you go through the process of thought, but it's related to this character and all his interactions, and it just keeps going through the same thing to focus on him. But if you don't care about like Jim Maine like I did, it's like, oh my god, just get on with it. So and a lot of his main protagonists are like that. So in some books, it works really well. Like Actors in the House, Lookout Cartridge, it's amazing and it's fantastic. But like in stuff like Women and Men, it doesn't work. It was fine for me in this novel. I think it was easier to attach myself because it's in Southern California. He's talking about a generation that I grew up in. He's talking about my hometown and there a little bit. So it was just so much. It's like a protagonist in an RPG, like Link from Legend of Zelda. It was so easy for me to attach myself to that.
Well, and I think I think like you said in your video, Ben, like he does capture. He is able to capture the vibe of like a place, right? And the people who live there, right? Like I definitely got that from the novel in terms of like Southern California culture and kind of like even down to the way they speak in some cases.
Yeah. So and like with Women in Minute, like a lot of it focuses on like New York and like same with Lookout Cartridge. So like it's one of those things where if you can vibe to the setting and whatnot, you probably vibe to the main character a bit more. But if you're not feeling that connection to it, so that's what I'm trying to say. It's a long way of saying it's a valid criticism. I can see how there can be that real disconnect because I vibe with that because he has my background. But if he doesn't have your background, I can see like, dude, there's nothing to this kid. He just likes photography.
My point is not though that like Zach is some sort of skeletal imago that I just sort of like cathect my experience on, and I was not capable of doing that as well in this round. My problem is that, the richness of like mapping psychological topography and like experiencing all of these like interjections of memory and all this stuff in the context of what I regard, and this is the last time I'll bring up Pynchon, as like a sort of, as not that he's like, he's not
Speak for yourself.
the grand master of conspiracy, but like when Pynchon goes into his particular what quote unquote difficult, sort of stylistic quirks, it's about forcing you to deal with the ways in which he regards sort of like whatever the deep state or like extra, legal or the ways in which people act outside to manipulate you. Like the reason his writing is kind of opaque and obscure is because he's trying to get you to like read the patterns and riddles that he's writing, so that to allow you to then like theoretically be able to like see how one could be manipulated, and like that's the point, versus like just creating a verisimilitude of like one's experience of being manipulated.
I can agree with what you're saying. I've also really quick. I've read all of Pynchon as well, so
Damn, that's okay. I have not.
Yeah.
Chad energy.
No, fuck you, dude. You're not smarter than me, dude. You're not smarter.
You're
than
fucking
me.
not smarter than me, dude. This podcast, this is canceled. How dare you come on here and cuck us on our own podcast?
Well, listen, man. I'm not trying to be overt with it, but just like a lot what Matt was saying, it's like that subtle manipulation I'm trying to do right now. But but I agree with you because I kind of like what I said earlier. Like, not saying that Iraq War wasn't real, but the whole thing about the scrolls, it's like something that McElroy just kind of made up on itself. Well, with Pynchon, a lot of these conspiracies that he gets to, like, yeah, some of them, like Interplex, are made up, but a lot of them are, like, tied in with the real world as well. So,
Yes.
and, like, in a lot of ways, you kind of just, it's like, oh, but he made this part up. But if you look at fake news and you look at fake information, kind of like with Umberto Eco, who also read all of, but, like, you realize, like, hey,
Had to get it in.
after you made that comment, I'm like, I was gonna drop this one, but after you when you kind of look at stuff and you look at all the fake information that proliferates like these real world facilities and real world organizations, and it's like, wait, this is not real, but like, and that's why it works with Pynchon because he's trying to get at that fact, and then you can look at the larger systems. Well, with McElroy, it's so self-referential, like there's nothing to compare it to. There's no Dead Sea Scroll conspiracy in real life, so it's all the cognitive process, but you can't map it onto anything in the real world. So I can totally understand that criticism that you're bringing up.
It did.
I mean, a little bit
go ahead,
of.
Paul.
I was just gonna say, like, to bring up your political point earlier, Gabe, about like the government, the U.S. government, kind of like
I never talk about politics.
potentially like manufacturing the idea of the scrolls. Like I was thinking of like maybe I latched onto this metaphor in my head a little too hard, but I was thinking like, is this a metaphor for WMDs? Like directly? Or not directly,
I think that's actually
but...
really interesting.
I'm looking
So
at
I mean,
Yeah.
right now.
What?
I don't know what that is.
Oh, weapons like the weapons of mass
weapons-
destruction like narrative.
Oh,
I
yeah,
think
okay,
you're-
my bad. But yeah, exactly.
I think-
That's a good point.
I think you're actually dead on, Paul, because what they call the scrolls is weapons of mass instruction.
Oh,
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
they do.
Yeah, so like I think you're actually
I
like,
totally
exactly
forgot that
right.
line, yeah.
I think you're exactly right. Like they're just using this sort of interesting replacement for that rationale, which is why I
Yeah.
think it's the cause of the war a bit too. In a
yeah, and I think
manufactured
it's like
sense.
it's a good metaphor too, because like I think that not to get even more political, but like the the right wing portion of our country is hyper religious, obviously, or that's like a part of the thinking. So to have the metaphor be like a form of a religious text, I thought was like a strong metaphor.
Here's an example I like to give. You don't want to get like too political in current events.
No, we love it.
No, we do.
We actually love it. Yeah.
Okay, well I'll use this anyway. But like when the Spanish went to the Aztecs to like conquer them and everything, a big reason for them to do that is because they believed that the Messiah was going to be born in Mexico, well pre-Mexico, and that's why they sent 12 Franciscan apostles to the Aztecs when they conquered them, and also the Aztecs in turn let the Spanish in because they thought that the priests looked like the Messiah Quetzalcoatl. Now, I don't believe in any religious stuff, so like obviously like that's all a bunch of mumbo jumbo. Christ wasn't reborn. Quetzalcoatl wasn't the priest, but like it's kind of like the same thing we're getting at. Like, these real world events that happened. That's kind of mythology and all this kind of fake information like that was made for it to justify it. Kind of like again like if those scrolls are planted, it's the weapon of mass instruction.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Go ahead, man.
I hope that connected.
No, definitely.
Okay, cool.
Well, I think it that blends more nicely with what I kind of regard as the theme, which is all of this manipulation going on and like this confusion, being part and parcel. I don't know, of like the experience of Zach. Like if the scrolls
Yeah.
were, I mean, if the scrolls were genuine, it could still work, but like I feel like it makes more sense, especially with the WMD literal, I think, 1-to-1 comparison, that it was that in light of 2013, because this is when this book was published, would like McElroy have known that was kind of under question? I guess it was always under question, but like
What was under question?
the whole like the narrative of the WMDs as like a
Yeah, I
rationale
think
for going.
that would have been known by that time.
I think
Yeah.
so, yeah.
But I think you're right.
Because
Matt.
that was
I
all
think
like
it kinda
early,
always
like
in
pre-2010
question.
stuff, right? Like
Yeah, that was like 2006
Yeah, when was the
through
Chappelle
9.
show out?
yeah.
Yeah, right. When did he tear down $50 million?
And then current events. When did he get $42.3 million for stand-up
Right,
special? Right.
He recouped it 15 years later or whatever. Yeah.
Oh god.
So I don't know what my point is there. Just more like I think it has more to do with if it were concocted and you get these references to like the speechwriter that Zach's dad knows and whatnot, and like I think even like parallels to Zach's own life and his relationship to his sister within the text of the scrolls a little bit. That there was hints that like some of the wording and messages within the scrolls are derived from Zach's father's observations of his children.
Oh, I actually did not make that connection. That's interesting.
I think that rings a bell, but I was so confused by that point that nothing connected for me.
That's all right. This
Yeah.
fucking shit was so hard, dude.
Well,
being
I mean, I
honest.
think actually. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Ben.
Are you sure? I just want to
Yeah.
make a quick point. I think you bring up a good point though, Matt, when you say like I don't know, but how that connects or something. But like, because it's like I think with Pynchon, he kind of makes the point that there's more of a direct influence, but at the same time the system takes over itself. While
Yeah.
McElroy might be more closer to like how real world misinformation handles, where things just become so obfuscated you can't tell who started it from who's being influenced by it and everything like that.
Sort of like the
Yeah.
game Telephone.
The new telephone.
Yeah, kind of.
A conspiracy is like the game Telephone.
But sometimes people
Oh.
plan the game
the
telephone
game
to be
tele- yeah.
played, and then they
Yeah.
observe the game telephone being played. I don't know. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Or
that's
Or
true.
they get influenced by it.
Convolution.
In tandem.
Right.
I did want to. I think we should. We haven't really talked directly about the writing style yet. I don't think.
Okay, well, before we get into that, I just want to make one more connection in terms of the sort of immateriality or potential unreality of the scrolls and the whole kind of conceit of the war in the first place, right? Because reading through this, one of the other kind of references, thinking about McElroy as a kind of like a postmodern writer, which he's often lumped in with. I was thinking about there's a book by Jean Baudrillard, who's a very kind of infamous in some ways postmodern philosopher.
The Matrix.
And the Matrix, yes, exactly, right. Famously cited by the Wachowski sisters as an influence on the Matrix, right? And he wrote a book.
Now?
Yeah, they're both trans women, right?
Oh, I know one of them trans. I didn't hear the other one.
I think they
Yeah,
both
they both
are.
are. They
Yeah,
both are.
yeah.
Yeah, okay.
They both.
But he wrote a book in the early 90s, I think, called The Gulf War Did Not Take Place. And it's about the way that the Gulf War, the first Gulf War, was sort of dematerialized and made into this kind of unintelligible fiction by media portrayals in the West of, clips of, celebrations and sort of like these weird clips that you would see of
Gabe,
yes.
if you're gonna go into Holocaust denial, I will leave this podcast.
I swear, no, I'm
You saw right through it. You don't let the
Yeah, it was
metaphysics
easy.
get you.
Like, it's like the
Yeah.
media and everything. And
Oh,
you control
God.
the media now.
It's such big a number. Like, it doesn't make sense. Yeah.
I swear that's not the point of the book. It's
Holocaust has
Here's a hot take. Did it actually? Here's a hot take. Did it actually happen or not? Conspiracies.
Never go on, man. Sorry.
no, that shit was funny. But it's a work of media analysis, basically, right? About the way in which media portrayals of war and violence distance us as the viewers of that violence from the realities of it, right? In the sense that, like, yeah, you can see a bombing happen on CNN or whatever, but under the guise of like, oh, here's the reality of what's happening, but it actually ideologically functions as a way to separate you and make you feel a sort of a moral distance from what's actually going on. And I think that this connects in a way with the sort of theme of photography in the book, right? Where Zach is a photographer, or he's interested in photography, and his father sort of critiques his photographic style, and there's this tension there as well. But I think, I guess I just think it's philosophically relevant that Zach's experience of this war it comes in a lot of ways from behind a lens.
Let me ask you a question, because I don't remember. When he saw Umo in the diving board at Saddam's palace, was he taking pictures?
Yes.
Because because correct me if I'm wrong, because you guys read this sooner than I have. There kind of seemed like to be a disconnect between him seeing his friend and the emotion that he probably should have felt at that time.
Yes, I think they're. Yeah, go ahead. Yeah,
that would kind of go really in line with what you're saying. It's like him seeing his friend that he's been searching for years and not even sure if he's alive, and he sees him on this board. You think he'd be a lot more elated, more emotional, but the disconnect. He was taking pictures at the time, which relates to what you're saying exactly.
and I think if I'm remembering that scene correctly, his first reaction is to try to reach for his camera in order to capture it on film, and he doesn't get to it in time, right? Before the actual explosion happens. And I think that speaks to your point, Ben, which is, about sort of like, he theoretically should be having this sort of visceral emotional reaction. This is someone I've literally been like asking everyone I meet, have you seen this guy, and like da 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 da. And he sees him finally, and his first instinct is to reach for his camera, to reach for a sort of obscuring lens to view the situation.
Right, and there was a thing I read I didn't like it so much in college, but it's kind of relevant, where it's like you go places and you think so much of the picture you're taking and how you're going to show it to other people that you don't really think about the experience in front of you as
yes.
And to go back to that media thing you were talking about, that was true with the Vietnam War, where there was kind of a disconnect. All the protests didn't really start happening with the citizens until they started filming it. So that was an example where it kind of worked in reverse. But there's also that.
Yeah.
But like, I think they aired that one famous image of the guy getting shot in the head, execution style, on TV. If I'm not mistaken, I could be wrong. But like, we've sanitized those images now. So like, yeah, when you see a bombing, like the mother of all bombs, you just see this big ass bomb in a field. You don't see the casualties at the end of it. You don't see who's dying. So you're so disconnected from that. So I agree with you where and I don't mean to be like an anti-media thing or anything, but it's like not showing the violence and things really does make that disconnect.
Yes.
From it.
Yeah, I think that's a better idea of what was happening than the idea I had in my head. I think my idea was mostly that he was so indoctrinated in his like militarized thinking, even at the point where he sees his old best friend, that he was just like, "Oh, this is my job in the military, so I have to take a picture of him." But I like your explanation a little bit better.
Well,
I did want to bring up
but
just
those
an
those work in
anecdote.
tandem, though. No, I was just gonna say, I think those two those two thoughts can work together, right? Like,
yeah. And Ben, I think it's interesting because, like, you're right. Like, we didn't really, as a country, we didn't really know like what was happening in Vietnam until we saw those pictures. And to put yourself in the head of a photographer, they probably have to like lose a bit of their humanity in order to keep going and be like, I need to take the best picture possible of some sort of horror and like lose myself a bit so that I can show the rest of the world what is happening.
Look at TMZ.
Yes.
Or you know,
Yes.
the other critique of photography, old school one, of like the aestheticization of anything being photographed, sort of as a cope for the violence, even if you're taking photos of horrific violence. Like, I think the thing about Zach is that like he was taking pictures that were regarded as too like not happy. Like he's literally
right? He was a bummer.
He got the job as a cushy little gig within the war, presumably by string pulling from his father, who was like, okay, like put my son in at least one of the less dangerous like career paths for his like dumb amateur photography that he was like a sports psychologist he thought he was going to be. Like, you know what I mean? Like he has so many weird like interests, and he ends up taking photographs that are still, they're like, yeah, it's not doing the propaganda thing.
Well, there's that whole
Well, you forget that like also like I think it's important like why Umo and him both decided to join, because like I think Umo represents a little bit like the future.
Well, Umo doesn't actually ever join the military, right? He tries to, and then he's denied, and then he, I think importantly, winds up there as part of like a documentary film team.
Right, which is another layer of mediation of like, what music are the soldiers listening to on the front? You know what I mean?
Oh,
right. That was his preoccupation. Yes.
Did you guys ever see that Michael Moore documentary about the Afghan war? Because one criticism was like, "Oh, look at they listened to metal music while shooting people in the tanks and everything." So that did relate to like a real world thing.
Yes.
Now let me ask you guys a question, because I don't remember I don't remember that Umu part either. But did they ever explicitly state Zach's purpose? Because I don't remember him really taking any like battlefield scenes or anything like that.
No, there's a number of references to like specific pictures that he takes. Like the one that sticks out to me is there's that chapter where, and you mentioned this in your video about the book, Ben, where the events are related but in reverse order, and it's like a countdown. There's the like 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 or whatever.
I don't think it's in reverse order. I think it's just out of order.
Yes, right. Yeah, maybe not directly reverse, but out of order. And his driver, who's bringing him to the palace, she mentions this picture that he took of two guys like playing cards at a table or something, and then there's this sort of discussion that comes up a few times, and it gradually is revealed that like there was someone like chained underneath the table in some sort of like, like slavish way or something, right? And then that's kind of like gradually edited out of the photograph.
I forgot that part. It's been a while.
I could be making that up. I don't think I'm making that up, but maybe I am.
No,
You're right.
When I say I don't remember something, I'm not saying that you're wrong. I'm saying I'm going to defer to you on that one because you read this more recently than I have. And
I'll
there was a
second
lot of
that.
parts I just didn't understand. Huh?
I'll second.
Well, there's a lot of
second.
parts.
I think he's right.
I think that goes for all of us. Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
I like to go back to the question, or with the question of like why did Zach join? It adds confusion when his dad is potentially trying to pull the strings about where he ends up in the military. Like it almost seemed like if your dad's trying to pull the strings about where you end up, it almost seems like that would happen in the Vietnam War when you were drafted and you have like a rich dad. But
yes,
I mean, I had the initial impression that Zach joined because he really wanted to. So if he really wanted to, why would he have the strings pulled by his dad and end up as a photographer?
That's the question. Man.
Right.
It added so much like weird confusion. I was like, I just don't get this.
It could be a thing also where his dad is that controlling. Even though he wanted to join, he still wanted him a cushy job as well.
That could be it. Yeah.
Well, and there's all these weird kind of like throwaway lines in the first half of the book where it almost seems like it's, and maybe this is me being conspiratorial even within the context of the text, like overly conspiratorial or whatever, but literally the first time Zach meets Umo at the pool, Umo, as he's kind of looking over his shoulder after his dive, says to Zach, "We need you." And Zach's father talks a lot about how Umo is going to be useful in some abstract kind of undefined way. And so it makes you wonder if like the whole scene at the pool and Zach being at that specific place at that specific moment and Umo being there at that specific moment is all somehow orchestrated.
And just for the listeners, like when you're talking about the pool scene, you're not talking about the Dawn pilots. You're talking about like kind of like early high school, pre-high school pool scene. Where
Yes. So there are two pool scenes that matter to the narrative.
Also, really quickly, McElroy talks about diving in almost every novel.
Is that true?
It's in like every. He talks about incest and
interesting.
driving, like almost like it's an actress in the house, and like he goes into detail. I don't know why he hasn't just done a book about diving at this point, but yeah,
Incest and diving, baby.
That's all you need.
That's a. We're riffing on our boy Cliff. He says sex and death are the only two things worth writing about. I say incest and diving.
Yeah, definitely.
But yeah, right. Like I think that it's interesting that, and this is another kind of maybe digression of a connection, but because I'm reading Infinite Jest now as well, and McElroy and Wallace are sort of these postmodern, difficult, blah, 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 blah.
Right.
One of the other preoccupations of Infinite Jest is also this sort of domineering father mentoring a promising young sports person. In that book, it's tennis, right? But in this book, it's diving. And so I wonder what the significance...
Wallace did read McElroy. He hated Women and Men, but after you kind of read Infinite Jest and you read... Okay, so bear with me. I am not a David Foster Wallace fan at all, so I really did not like his writing.
Go off.
Have you
Go
read
off,
Infinite
King.
Jest?
I have, and it was dumb. It's like
You heard it here first. You heard it here first on the Spy Crackers podcast.
Take a really
I haven't
nice
read it
drink,
yet. So.
Take a really nice drink, pour like half of it out, and just fill the rest with like tap water, and that's what Infinite Jest is.
Damn.
So, but like
That's spicy.
Yum.
Yeah, but he takes a lot from McElroy. I mean, like a lot of key, and it's not just a thing like okay, I can see the influence, but he takes a lot of key plot points and everything. So, like trying to find this mysterious film that's in Lookout Cartridge, the dominating father thing. Yeah, and that could be like any book, but you can see a lot of similarities between the two.
And the sports thing specifically feels very relevant because McElroy writes very elegantly about, there's a scene where Zach is doing, it's like a flashback scene, but he's doing backstrokes in the pool and he's looking up at the ceiling.
Yeah.
Do y'all remember that scene?
Kinda.
Yep.
No.
And
I'm sure I was lost in that moment, which I was multiple times.
yeah,
Totally reasonable.
yes.
Yeah.
So I didn't have a point other than to say that this is also something that McElroy writes seriously and elegantly about, right? These sorts of mental experiences of trying to reach kind of like physical heights in a very specifically defined, sports context.
Right. I do want to mention something quick on the pool and like kind of sidetrack. Maybe Paul can comment on this too. But it's interesting because Zach has a girlfriend at that scene. And
Paul definitely cannot comment on that.
I cannot relate already.
He's going to be able to because he has a girlfriend, but then he still develops that relationship with his sister later on in the book. And
Are you making fun of me?
Yeah, we're making fun of you for having a sister.
no,
Disgusting.
I have
You
two
have
sisters.
siblings?
Which sister are you talking about?
Oh, that's right.
the hot one. But,
Good God, man.
I'm nothing against you, man. I don't
Lay
know what I'm doing
off.
this for. No, but my point is that it's interesting that he has relations with other women, and there's really no, aside from a dominating father, there's no other, like trauma in their life. But he develops this very, harmonious relationship with his sister that later on in the novel just kind of peters off naturally, and they eventually do get, like other partners, and like how he just kind of goes to her room at night. Well, they don't. He doesn't say what they do, but we all know. But he goes to his room and like
Fingering.
the father. Yeah, there's a fingering.
Ew.
Yeah. And he goes to her room, and the father catches them. But it's just kind of interesting to see that, like, it's like, no, this guy does have a healthy relationship with other women, but like he does have that relationship with his sister, and that's said so much in different McElroy books, and it's almost like what Delaney talked to me about one time. Like, he got called post-transgressive, where like
Samuel.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, I'm friends with him.
Shit.
He liked my review of Short Rumbling, which is like a great example of post-transgressive, where it's like it's very like messed up and everything, but the characters approach it from a point of like a really loving and consensual relationship, and McElroy really explores that with incestual relationships between, like, especially between brothers and sisters throughout all his novels. Like yeah, it's a very taboo, but he addresses from the idea of like hey, let's get rid of all like all the like Bible clutching over it, and like let's actually explore this. Because if you think about it, it probably happens a lot more than people actually like to admit.
Yes, and it's always gross and bad, and you're gross and bad for.
I mean, I'm
saying
not
that it's
disagreeing
okay.
with you on that.
I mean,
Well,
that's
yeah, go ahead, Matt.
there's that Nabokov book, Ada and Ardor. That's
Yes.
that's the pivotal moment. That's sort of the pivotal relationship there. But I also think that like, Emily, or is it that the sister's name?
Yeah, well, that's kind of the whole thing, right? Is that she's kind of fluid in terms of like how she's referred to in different contexts, right? It's like M or E or Emily or whatever.
Right. So, but it's like EM, like she's the E minor chord, or there's like E equals
Yes.
MC
Yes.
squared, and all this
Yes.
kind of shit. Like she's a sort of an equation, like a variable in
An
an
equation.
An equation. That's right. Yeah. In which Umo, I think, plays a part. The sort of more like crass understanding I sort of took away from them was that Zach is a sort of vanilla kind of nondescript person caught between the figures of his sister and Umo, as like literally described, like, because there's a lot of references to like spinning your wheels and being sort of caught in Zeno's paradox of the dive, right?
Yes.
Like the kind of like infinite division of you approaching something, and the paradox and all that. And then like Emily being always asking what came before, and then Umo is constantly described as talking about what is going to happen, like what's coming up, and like these two people being sort of like two principles or perspectives, kind of trying to become married within Zach, and the incestuous thing feels a little bit like just kind of like history's relationship to the past, like self-mixing constantly, and like constantly like enveloping itself within itself, whereas there's this like future. And I think it's also significant that the future is like someone considered an illegal immigrant and foreign to the land, but also he could be implicated in the conspiracy, so I don't know.
But that's also sort of how memory works, right? Like, you have Emily and Umo who represent these kind of like poles, where the one is concerned with, I think you're really, right to bring this up, Matt, where Emily is constantly bringing up, well, what happened just before that, right? Like that's a refrain almost whenever she's in one of a scene, and Umo is sort of in the opposite refrain, like, well, okay, what's going to happen next? And the book is written in a way that neither of those poles really make sense. They're not really operative because it's all jumbled. I read a I hate to reference Goodreads, but I did read a Goodreads review that I thought had put this well, which is that the events in the book kind of unfold as if they were drawn out of a shuffled deck of cards, right? Like it's
Yeah,
all
that's a
part
good
of a it's all part of a cohesive thing, but they're drawn out kind of at random.
And that's like you said, that's a great memory or like present cognition. When you're trying to figure things out in the present, you always think of what's going to happen next, what happened before, and you don't get information in a linear passage. And like also, and I think I like the thing about the what you guys said about Emery being kind of like memory and like the past and everything. Because when the relationship does end, it's not like this huge breakup or anything. It's just kind of like this thing that just like, okay, well, we kind of outgrown this, or it's just kind of time to. It's just kind of like it's time just to move on, and kind of like what you have to do with like old memories and stuff like that. You just gotta move past it at one point as well. And like what you said, like Umo being like a great representation of the future, because like he's kind of like this, not refugee, but he escapes China and he goes to Hawaii. And he like goes to multiple countries before he even comes to America, and he's an illegal immigrant just trying to find his place in the world and everything. But it's kind of like just to go back to current events, like that thing was like, oh, we're losing all the white people in America, but like with migration and everything, everybody's going to become more mixed race later on.
Well, and I think that's one of the interesting things about Umo's character, right? Is that it takes like a third of the novel for anyone to even pin down his actual kind of like place of birth or whatever, right? Like everyone assumes at the beginning of the novel, everyone kind of assumes he's Latin American or something because he came through the southern border. And then people start sort of assuming he's like Hawaiian or something, but it turns out he's Chinese or like Mongolian,
That happens to me because like I'm Jewish Mexican. My dad was Jewish, my mom was Mexican, and like for whatever reason, people I know I'm a white boy, but people have the toughest time pinning me down. Like if you tell people like like all throughout high school, it's like a Mexican. Does your mom speak Spanish? Like no. It's like no. Do you speak Spanish? No. Is your mom from Mexico? It's like, yeah. It's like, oh, you're not Mexican. Like, okay. It's like, oh, you're Jewish? Like, yeah. Is your mom Jewish? No. Oh, you're not Jewish. Like, okay. I guess I'm just whatever then. So, like, for a lot of biracial people and mixed people like that, that is an experience where people have a very difficult time like pinning them down. So, I think that does relate. That's very apt to the novel.
And it's also interesting thinking. Okay, so one of our slogans on this podcast is that every book that we read is a sequel to the last book that we read, and the last book that we read was Mohsen Hamid's Exit West, and that book, the premise of that book, Exit. Oh God, I don't want to talk about this again. Exit. There is a difference. I know Ben thinks that it's all the same.
Well, let me put it this way: I had a lot of ear infections as a kid, so that's probably why I can't speak anyway. So I should not be part of this conversation whatsoever.
No. It's a dumb hobby horse that we got stuck on for some reason, but.
Horse weird. I just know you, man.
You said hobby weird too.
Yeah.
It's a hobby horse.
There you go.
Hobby horse. It's a hobby horse.
But the premise of that book is essentially right that these portals randomly open around the world and people sort of can walk through them, and that replaces the process of emigration. But I think, like, Umo seems to me to be, as a character, at least the way he's characterized, certainly at the beginning of the book, of that kind of potential future that Hamid was talking about, right? Where, yeah, he's bounced around and he's been through South America and China, and there are long sections of the book where Zach sort of speculates. Getting back to that scene where he's doing the backstroke at the pool and look up at the ceiling, he's kind of envisioning Umo's sort of path across the world map and like how could this have gone, right? And go ahead.
It's
Matt.
it's kind of like he's kind of running the gauntlet, and I thought in a way kind of representing like true meritocracy. Like, because, a big aspect of the novel is, I think, like, this notion of competition, and the hearings that Zach goes to are this sort of, like, aren't they the competition hearings? They're basically called the competition
Yeah, I believe
hearings.
they're officially labeled the competition hearings, or the hearings on competition or something, yeah.
And so in some way, Umo is, like, someone who more purely represents, I don't know, some kind of like actual like salt of the earth, like lived experience and like education outside of the system, which makes him. It's so complicated by the fact that I don't know if he's part of the conspiracy, though.
I
right?
know, dude. That's what fucks me up.
I was gonna mention something about that now, because if
That
you
kind
go
of
by that
messes it
viewpoint,
up.
if you do see him as as a trigger for the explosion, then that kind of goes more on the meritocracy thing as well, where it's just kind of like, in this country, meritocracy doesn't really matter because the powers that be might restrict you. If you're an immigrant, you might work hard, but it doesn't allow you. So Uma worked hard, he did all the stuff. He would still use the trigger as his bomb explosion. But that's, again, if you believe in the conspiracy or not.
Because he's maybe alive by the very end, right?
Yeah,
Or is that a flashback?
It's that's one of the questions, I think, is that it's never actually confirmed that Umo dies in the explosion.
I like to think that he's so good
at
at diving that he like dove into the explosion and just came out with no little explosion like he did in the water.
I know you're memeing right now, but that might be something to that, because like they talk about the underground waterways beneath that and how the water just kind of flushed out through there.
Yeah,
So maybe he escaped through that. We don't know.
Yeah.
Well,
like
water
and
slide just
diving,
gonna
maybe.
dove right into the tube and just
because that's how Zack ultimately escapes, right? And this also gets to the
well, that's where he finds the scrolls too. He finds them like
yes, the priest.
Right?
The priest gives him the little cutout section of the scroll, right? And then he kind of keeps it as a way to kind of like, check, like, are these real, right? Like, if the government published versions of these scrolls include this small passage that I was given, then they knew about it ahead of time and they're fake. But if it doesn't include it, then they're authentic and I have an authentic piece of it.
That priest came out of nowhere. That was so confusing.
I know. We should talk about that.
I was hoping you guys had an answer for that, because that was the part I was just lost. That priest was like, how is he at the bottom of this explosion out of nowhere?
it
I
felt
think
like
my answer is
like
fake.
Dungeons and Dragons or like like Bloodborne or something. Like you're suddenly just like meeting with a guy that's just like in the tunnels.
Yeah,
which I actually kind of liked. But yeah, I have no explanation. It was just like he popped
Damn
up.
it.
It seemed like
he loaded in properly.
yeah.
I think it's I mean this is just my predilection personally, is like to assume that there's some sort of op going on and that this is like 5 layers out of an orchestrated event and things were meant to be this way.
See, I saw it as a freak accident, to be honest. But again, the second half I was so lost on. But you guys are convincing me the other way. I gotta reread this book, but yeah. So like, the more I hear you guys talk, the more I'm convinced that like it was all part of some sort of plan.
The reason,
But
like,
it's such a weird plan, right?
right?
there's
yeah,
also
like,
a
what is the plan?
What is the
It goes back to-
plan?
It goes back to the conspiracy thing, where it's kind of like the COVID thing was like, oh, it's a plot by the Democrats. There's a plot by the Democrats to infect the entire world. Isn't there a better way to win an election here?
Right.
Like,
Yeah.
it
Right.
kind of goes to that. It's a conspiracy that's so convoluted. That's a good point. Like, oh, everything. I'm more convinced hearing you guys, but when you take a step back, like, what? That doesn't make any damn sense. So that's a great point, Paul. Damn.
Do we want to take a stab of like what we think the conspiracy is? Does anyone want to just sort of
Wait,
like, try
before we do that, can I bring up another like sequel thing about every book? Like, Ben, have you read Correction by Thomas Bernhard?
Give me 1 sec. I just took the biggest fart. Oh no, I haven't.
Yes, King. I wish we had the audio.
I
Feels good, man.
myself. I was like, fuck that.
don't do that again.
All right.
No, do it.
We're about the truth.
I actually kind of wish that if I asked that question, you just farted, because that's kind of how I thought
That'd have been amazing.
about that
Have you read
book
the
anyway.
correction?
But I mean, that book has similar sister themes. Right? It was the last
Yes.
difficult book we read, I would say, like difficult verbally and literarily. It was very difficult to read. It was like one long. It wasn't. There was no paragraphs in it. It was almost one long sentence.
Okay.
But in that book, the main character also has weird feelings for his sister, and I had this weird, not feeling, but like weird thought of just like, what
It's
are
only
these,
weird if you. It's only weird if you make it weird, man.
Yeah, man.
I was just like, what are these weird guys that are like really experimental fiction writers? Why are they writing about incestuous relationships with their sisters?
Well,
Did you guys-
Does it with
I mean-
Delaney does it with his father. Does that make it better?
Yes.
It makes it more interesting.
Yeah.
I mean, this is a question, right?
That's a
Like
good question,
because on a sort of traditional plot analysis, the whole incest thing, like I think Emily serves a plot function, and Matt laid that out well in terms of the counterpoint between the past and the future with her and Umo and so on and so forth.
Can I say one more thing about Emily?
Please.
Really, just because I don't know where else to insert it, is that her name's Emily, and she keeps quoting "Myself was formed a carpenter" by Emily Dickinson, which is a poem that references like self whittling and like sort of planar surfaces and the art of boards and like literal references. And the thing that she keeps saying is, "My tools took human faces."
Which is so weird because Umo and Zach are arguably tools with human faces of the conspiracy, right?
Right, and then the dad keeps saying, "Let your tools do the work for you."
Yes.
I actually got to ask McElroy a question on this, on the incest part.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah,
Nice.
yeah. It's on the kaleidoscope. So I asked like, it's a healthy depiction of normalized relationship between brother and sister. Do you mind if I just read it like verbatim? I'll try to make it quick.
Do it up.
Yeah.
All right. So the next question for me depicts a healthy relationship between, brother and sister. Were you seeking an erasure of this taboo, or simply exploring this often unexplored side of human sexuality? And Joseph McElroy, I'll read his comment. I suppose the latter, so like the unexplored side of human sexuality, which makes use though of quite other incoherent energies of my wish that I had a sister. Though who has been sure and why so he's questioning who I am. But the sibling intimacy of which I have observed with suspense and compassion reaches away from the novel's somewhat typical and bleak and vivid American family in San Diego into the strangeness of Iraq War and the healing and experiment and even math and physics that, absorbed into the body by the diver in advance, connects springboard diving with all plotted desires in the book. And, to be honest, that didn't answer my question for me, but maybe if you guys cross more stuff out of that for me, because his answers are all like, it's like, oh, I can see why you write literature like this, because you just think like this. So
Yeah.
I don't know how much
that just adds way more confusion to me. Like springboard diving equates to every question you have about the book. Is that kind of what he said?
Like, I mean, no, dude, it's very simple. Wanting to fuck your imaginary sister is just physics.
Yeah, just watch the Olympics.
As is reading, according to
So why'd you want to show the sister relationship? Well, related to the Iraq War, like, are they doing this in Iraq? Is that why we went to the like?
I kind of love though that we're reading a book and we have like actual answers of questions from the actual author. That's a first.
That is
for
a first.
podcast. That's pretty awesome.
I
But
wanna get an
it
interview
doesn't
with him
help
if I
at
can.
all. But
No. If I ever get an interview, I'm gonna grill the crap out of him with that one. Like,
Yeah, time's a ticking. We got to get some more McElroy interviews. I listened to the Bookworm one, and that was like the only real meat and potatoes I could get.
no, you're the man, George. No, Joe. Like, remember when he said that?
Yeah.
It's like, yeah. He just said it so weird, and Mac was like, oh, okay. So it's like,
Here's a thing that just is like apropos of nothing is just McElroy as a speaker in interviews, the ones I've heard and him reading. He's great. What a nice man. What a great man. Just like a sweet, smart person, very thoughtful. I don't know. It's funny because I was reading some Helen DeWitt short stories, some tricks.
that's weird. I was thinking of that book we read by her today. Randomly.
The Last Samurai?
anything.
The Last Samurai.
I don't think I like her as a person.
I brought this up on the podcast. I watched
know, and
interviews of her, and I was like, I don't like you at all.
I finally think I agree
Yeah.
with you, Paul. And
Nice.
there's a way in
8
which
months
I
later.
think there's a way in which I think that's like sort of lowbrow and not fair. There's a lot of onerous and sort of gross people who make great art, but like
Oh yeah.
at the same time, there are ways in which it's helpful. to place the voice that is creating these things.
To come back to Pynchon, as much as I love Pynchon, he's like the daddy literature figure to me. I get the feeling I would not like that man if I actually spoke to him.
I would love to hear even one spoken word from him. That's my problem.
Yeah, because the thing is also, well, go just watch the Simpsons episode.
I know, yeah, the question mark bag over his head.
There was like a interview. Somebody was talking about like, oh yeah, when Pynchon was writing Gravity's Rainbow, when he was 30, he was hanging out with high schoolers at the same time.
Fun. Okay.
Yeah, so it's like, and so like, and then like, I mean, he seems like a cool dude, but then there's like stuff like that I hear about it where it's like my dad's like, Pynchon, stop messing with those high schoolers. So. And then like somebody asked him like, why are you writing Gravity's Rainbow? Like, I just want to make a bunch of money, which is fine. He made a good novel, but like there's some parts about Pynchon like, what a cool guy. There's some parts of him like, what a weirdo, and some parts of him like, So.
I'm sure. I bet. Yeah. Well, yeah, and I think he's relevant to this just because
It's
I don't know.
On a thematic level, yeah.
Right. Yeah. Like
because Pynchon loves writing about like military kids, like in V and like in Gravity's Rainbow, all officially and everything. So.
Yeah, I still kind of stand by my opinion that like, even if he's just some sort of like CIA apologist for his crimes, working for like, you know, I don't know, what was it for Gravity's Rainbow, like Boeing or something?
Oh yeah.
Living
Boeing.
in Seattle.
He worked for Boeing for like a few years as a mathematician or something. No, he wrote literature for the brochures, I believe. No, he's a mathematician, but he read a lot of the brochures. That was what it was.
That's right.
Yeah.
I don't think we've actually read a ton from this book, and I wanted to read a little chunk.
Do it up.
This is early. This is like
yeah.
page
Gabe,
90.
what is Gabe doing? He's just walking around like he picked up a pillow.
Gabe's just decided to leave the podcast and go talk to his wife and just live in his house and just forget that he was supposed to have responsibilities. It's
a Doberman. It's a big Doberman dog.
Oh yeah, there you go.
There. He's a sweetheart.
Just slaps the.
So, I don't know how much to read of this. I'm just gonna try and read a chunk. It has to do with like the sort of like the scrolls and like competition and the usefulness of the scrolls in terms of like reinforcing notions through religion that libertarian kind of free market capitalism is the way to go, and we're like on the right track as a country, and we needed this little boost from the man himself, JC. But it goes, my father had come back from Level Playing Field, which is all in caps. Level Playing Field Task Force, brainstorming about the future of no competitor left behind competition. At a retreat.
Such a funny line.
So yeah, it's no competitor left behind competition at a retreat in Fort Meade, Maryland, which is, you know, where the NSA is. A welcome had been read from the president to the effect that you have the intelligentsia with you always, but me you won't always have, my mother reported after Dad had come home and left again. Fort Meade, I asked. She thought so. Fort Meade stayed with me until it came to me, as I later did not have to tell my sister. She told me. To me, though, our father betrayed no special acquaintance with what was going on in those days. I betrayed little curiosity. Dad was being consulted. He got wind of things early, it seemed to me, though I was slow to read the papers. His news about capital punishment, that scholars had evidenced Jesus, with his sharp-honed plowshare, had not consistently opposed it, in fact appeared a month later in an obscure item Milt pointed out that ran in the Union, supported by a quote, not for attribution from someone well-placed that there was nothing old-fashioned about Old Testament get-your-own-back grit. Like Christian business, always unfinished, even the everybody, capitalized, wins creed my dad had his doubts about. It's just yeah. There's a lot there, you know. There's then the implication of I think essentially the NSA and Fort Meade, which is in Maryland and is a sort of almost Vatican-like I forget what it's called. It's like let me look this up really quick.
I mean, I think it's good that we just talked about, or you just read from the book though, because the other night, Gabe, on Zoom after you hurled, Matt.
You gotta bring this up. Why you gotta bring this up?
How did you hurl?
Can I just
I barfed.
That doesn't explain anything.
Can I just say that this is my favorite phrase? Fort Meade is described as a census-designated place in Maryland.
Oh,
That is so vague.
Just
That
like
is
so
amazing.
vague.
that's like
Yeah.
That's just like Gabe's answer right now. Like, how did you hurl? I barfed.
Dude, listen.
Yeah.
I barfed. I puked. I puked.
Well, listen, I was channeling McElroy responding to your question about incest.
Yeah. It's like,
Huh.
it relates back to the bodily functions and how the brain like has unconscious like directions towards the body. It's like cool. It really goes into math and biology. It's like thanks.
It was physics. It was all
Thank
physics.
you.
Yeah.
No, I was gonna say that after you.
I was drunk. I got too drunk and I threw up.
You got too
there you
drunk. Very rare. Gabe never hurls.
I've only thrown up
But-
drunk in my life twice, and that was one of them. I throw up when I'm hungover relatively often. Not on the regular, but much more common than when I throw up when I'm actually drunk.
I don't
With
drink
you
at all.
there. Good for you, man.
Yeah.
I guess so. It just means I have to live life sober.
Yeah.
Chad.
Cheers to that.
Cheers to that.
My dumb joke is like, oh yeah, man, 30 years sober, every day is a struggle.
I've been sober since I was 2. No, I was gonna say that after you went to bed, Gabe, Matt and your wife and I, we were talking about this book, and Morgan actually brought up the point of just like when you read the book aloud, the linguistics of it actually like makes more sense when you hear it.
Yes.
And we were talking about like whether or not that was McElroy's intention or if that was just like a byproduct of his writing style.
I had a story about this, and it pissed me off because like when I was reading Lookout Cartridge, my ex, I was like telling how difficult the book was, and she read 2 lines aloud, and it sounded so simple and made me look stupid. And
She was like, "This isn't hard, you dumb
yeah, that's
dumb."
what she said. I'm like get out of my house. But but like it's one of those things where like on a line by line level, McElroy is actually pretty simple. Like if you read Plus, the wording there is really simple. But where McElroy becomes difficult is in culmination. Because I don't know if you ever read John Ashbery, like the Surrealist poets. If you read one stanza, like there's a 5 stanza poem, by the time you get to the 5th stanza, you're like, wait, what the hell was the first stanza about? And that's what happened to me in so many McElroy books, where like I get to the end of one page with the other, I'm like, wait, I don't know what's going on. And then I read the first paragraph and I'm like, wait, no, I did read this part. I was paying attention because
Yeah.
it's just so much information. It's overload, and you forget what you just read previously.
Well, I think this also gets to come back full circle to like an hour ago. Matt's point about the kind of like phenomenological naturalism of the way McElroy and other sort of like postmodern writers tend to write is that like it sounds better when you read it out loud. Not better, but more clear when you read it out loud, because we insert things just naturally that we assume are there in the written text, right? Things like breaths and punctuations and sort of pauses and whatever. But that's a very different experience than actually reading it silently on the page, right? So it is more naturalistic in terms of how we speak and how we think, which is why it translates well when it's read aloud, but when it's just read word for word on the page, it can become very disorienting.
Well, I think I coined this term when reading difficult books. I end up getting literary epilepsy. And that's what happened for sure in this book for me. It's just like I read like 100 pages on Sunday, and I was physically ill. I think it actually made me
That's
sick.
that's a big
work
meal.
off on Monday. I was just
I've had people say like I can't read more than 10 pages of McElroy a day. So yeah, I think the most
Yeah.
I've ever read was like 70 pages, and like I stayed up all night and just read 70 pages. So 100 is like, yeah, that's a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it nearly killed me.
But you're here. You're here.
I'm
But
here.
there's also, and speaking of realism, just to again put a wrinkle of criticism into it, we don't just watch a character in a movie piss and shit
I
Or
wish
have
we
it.
did.
or have a snack. There's a place and time for it, and you can. But my comparison was getting sort of just finding not a lot of finding no toehold sometimes, or getting bucked off of a horse or something. I was reading I'm trying to make it through the language of each page, and hold on to what's the subject verb agreement happening here, even, or what's the predicate, and then just losing it, and that becoming a little bit frustrating, even if it maybe is my own sort of weakness.
I have that's a very stylistically intentional thing McElroy does, because
Oh, yeah.
Okay, Paul.
No, I disagree. I agree with you.
You say yes.
I was just I was gonna say I feel like his writing style is so intentional. It's very artistic to me. He's developed a new way of. I mean, I haven't read Pynchon, and other difficult writers that you guys have been talking about. I've been kind of lost, but in my mind, his way of writing is so very much his own that it becomes a new art form, literarily, to me.
Well, that's why I put McElroy on the level of Pynchon and Joyce, because they took something that's so uniquely theirs and just really brought it up to that level of mastery. And also, what you're talking about, because and it makes sense if you think about the cognition of, if you relate so much of McElroy back to the cognition of thought, things just make so much sense. So, in all of his books, he doesn't talk in past tense. I'm sure you noticed in this one. If he goes back to a flashback, it's still in present tense.
Yes.
That happens in Actress in the House in the first chapter, where it's his dead wife, and then later on in the chapter, his wife's alive. And what the hell? But it just goes backwards. You just have to get that. Or there's no character. He doesn't introduce characters at all. The people are already in a relationship. The name's already assumed. So, that's why, and a lot of the names are similar. So, you go through all these characters, but there's no proper introduction for them because, you're just in the midst of the relationship of these characters. And if you think about it, like you said, in a movie, we don't see people piss and everything like that. In our lives, when we think of past events, we don't think of past events in the past tense. If you think of a memory, you just put yourself in the event of that memory. And you don't introduce yourself unless you're coming onto the Spine Crackers for the first time.
Let's go.
Yeah, you don't say oh, hello Martel, my friend, my friend from that I met after college and everything like that. You just or you don't make a memory introduction each time you talk to people. You're just in the midst of that conversation. But even if with the Spine Crackers podcast, I don't have to know you guys from high school. If I don't know how to watch the first episode, I can just watch the podcast. It takes a little bit of time catching up, but I can get to know each one of your personalities. So that's what McElroy goes for. In the intentions of thought and in the present moment, you don't have those introductions. You don't have those. We don't think in the past tense and everything like that. So I can see what you mean getting lost in the footing, because he admits those things to, I guess, I don't want to necessarily realism, but to give that idea of cognition.
No, I think that's really
good. That's really good.
Yeah,
That's
I think that's really well put.
Assessment
It's sort of like
from the McElroy scholar.
I hope it's a good assessment. I read so much of him. So
YouTube badge.
Yeah.
but it is right.
Yeah.
To the question of realism, it is very, the way we experience things, as you say, Ben. It's constantly. It's like a perpetual in media res, right? Where we're always already in the sort of mess, right?
Yeah.
In the kind of midst of things, and it gets to the point that you made very early on in the discussion, where you were saying you had to kind of parse through that scene in the middle of Umo diving into the pool and be is this a flashback or is this reality? Or is this sort of not reality, because flashbacks are real?
I know what you mean. Yeah,
you know what I mean, right?
Present tense.
Yeah, present tense.
Is it present tense?
Exactly. And I agree with you, and maybe Matt will disagree, and maybe this comes down to the ways that we sort of all individually experience our own subjectivity or something like that. But I do agree that it's all, when I think about memories or the past or whatever, obviously if I'm expressing that verbally to someone else, I'll use the past tense. But when I'm thinking about the thing that I'm about to express, it is felt more or less in the present tense, right?
Yeah. Well, here's a good example. In memory, you never use the word I. Like in your thought process, you almost never use the word I unless you're mad at yourself.
Like, I'm so mad that I threw up the other night when we were talking.
Why the hell
And I'm
did I
so
do
mad that Paul brought it up on the podcast.
Yeah, but if you but if you're just kind of going through your memories, you don't think of it in that sense. You realize hey, literature isn't reflective of the real world. It's like the movie trick in a sense. Like, we use I so we can give the reader something to grasp onto, or we use past tense so the reader can have something to latch onto. But we don't do that in our own lives. That's something just in literature by itself.
And just in reality too, right? Like, remembering something, even if you are using I or referring to yourself, is still actually literally in the present tense.
Right. Actually, I take that back. The time you would use it is when you're trying to convey information to somebody else.
Right.
For ourselves who already know the information, we skip all that. We don't get confused remembering our past or whatnot.
Right. We only have to situate ourselves in time for someone else.
Correct. Yeah,
Yeah.
That's a perfect way to put it. That sums it up really quickly. Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is okay. So the only other some other link I just had, it doesn't really connect, but well, it kind of does. Like all things in McElroy, I guess, that I'm starting to figure out at this point.
Yeah.
Is that so the scrolls, right? Are also partially there's this thing called the Q source in sort of analysis of the Gospels, right? Like the Synoptic Gospels are, I think Matthew, Mark, Luke,
That
and
relates
John.
to Star Trek: The Next Generation. Q. Sorry,
Maybe.
it's been a few episodes since I mentioned Star Trek, and I feel like I had to.
QAnon.
The Q source.
And that
QAnon.
relates to Red Letter Media, who talk about Star Trek all the time. And they're on YouTube.
Dude, I love Red Letter Media.
Same. And that's a YouTube channel. Also, just
Yes.
youtube.com/bookshore. And we.
Yes.
Yes,
Oh my God.
no thread is too thin.
Yeah. No, but Red Letter Media is top tier. But yeah.
Yeah.
My only point being that I think that the scrolls are supposed to be kind of a riff off of this idea of the Q source in the Gospels, which is like that Matthew and Luke were, claimed to have been referencing Mark, who was like kind of the first sort of source of translated, messages from Christ. And then another thing, just another person or entity, and it's called the Q source. And that's supposed to explain the
Right.
the why they're called the Synoptic Gospels is because they all sort of they have a lot of strange similarities, despite the fact of having been written at different times from different people. That is used to validate the idea that they were only gathered from another, as they say in the book, kind of mouth-to-ear account from Jesus himself. And so the Q source is this idea of another person that had the direct sort of conversational translation from Jesus directly to themselves, interpreting it. But that being called the Q source because it's a question and it's called into sort of doubt. And that it's not really something that's sort of universally agreed upon, and therefore it's just this weird limbo. Like the book, it feels.
Well, and of course, right? Thinking about memory and language in general, one of the hang-ups of people who think about this is not that something is lost in translation per se. That's a reductive way to put it, but I do think McElroy is thinking about the ways in which memory intersects or overlaps with lived experience in the moment, right? There's a lot of dialogue between Zach and Umo where there's linguistic kind of weird hooks, and Umo finds something funny that Zach says because it doesn't necessarily translate properly, and Umo kind of like plays around with pronouncing things differently when he's speaking to Zach. And so I do think that this whole question of like, what is the reality that we are expressing when we speak to one another, and what is the reality that we remember in our memory as compared to the reality as it was, is something that's operative here as well.
You guys are killing me right now. This is like one of the biggest plot points and themes of Lookout Cartridge.
In a good way?
In the best way. So,
Yes.
like, because in Lookout Cartridge, they're looking for this film, but you never get an explanation for what the film is. You just see scenes, and you never see the film. However, those somewhat multiple iterations. I know what you mean by lost in translation, but not quite. And I can't comment too much on the Q source, but you saying it too, and that relates where. So they're trying to find this film again, but which version is correct? Is it the director who is his notes? Is that the most pure version of the film? Is it the other cameraman who filmed it and edited it? Is that the more pure version of the film? So is it in note taking? Is it editing? Is it the raw footage by itself, or is it the final product?
Yes.
There's some other ones that I can't remember, but it just goes back to that thing: which interpretation is the most accurate interpretation of this product?
Which I think also circles back to the point we were kind of discussing earlier about Zach being a photographer, right? Which
Yeah.
is sort of like, because like Matt was saying, his father critiques his photography. He thinks his photography is very bad at the beginning, right? And I think his father is sort of meant to embody the sort of like, objectivist, like photography is just meant to kind of capture reality as it is. But then we get into Zach's mind and his experience, and it's very muddled and messy. And I think that is supposed to be a sort of signal that this is actually how it is, in reality. Like reality is messy, memory is messy. Photography as a sort of stand-in for those things is also messy and does not capture on a sort of one-to-one level truth with a capital T.
Correct, and then it comes back to us, like what I was talking about Stonehenge earlier. Then it's on us to go through the process of like figuring out. So we can never really get to what the true source is, because that's always going to be up for debate. But then that's what becomes more important is that process of figuring it out and going through these resources.
So I have a question then, basically,
Yeah.
which is that, and this is my problem. This is either my problem or not with the book. Is like.
No, I'm sorry. That was just funny. It's either my problem or it's not my problem.
Not.
You're trying to be kind to me. If you don't like this book, that's totally fine, man. I'm not gonna get mad.
No, as of right now, spoiler alert. I guess I'm positive, but in the more sort of conservative sense, with this particular book, and it's like, so is there a narrative? Is there a true narrative to Untangle, or is it all question marks and like postmodern, like we don't
it's
know
all
and can
question
never
marks.
know?
Because that's the thing with I've asked other people with Lookout Cartridge. It's question marks.
In that sense, I don't think I like that applied to this narrative. I don't think I do.
To
And
this
that's
specific
maybe
narrative,
just
or, like,
me. To this
is that-
specific narrative.
Okay, fair enough. Yeah.
I mean, I actually like it compared to this. I mean, I think, Matt, that you have gripes with that form of storytelling in general. Is that fair
No.
to say? Are you sure?
Yeah,
I feel like you don't like open-endedness in general.
I do.
Okay.
I do.
that's
I
my
really
own
do.
opinion.
Well, so then Matt, re-articulate the question, I guess, maybe to avoid.
But before you go, I wanted to say that like, if it's metaphorical to the Iraq War and conspiracies in general and conspiracy theories, maybe potentially about WMDs, we never came to a conclusion about whether or not there were WMDs or not.
Well, we did. There weren't.
I mean, we did, but like, we don't totally know, do we? I mean, we had like satellite footage and like photographs and shit, but does that like
There
clearly prove
weren't.
or like disprove?
Well, I mean, I I mean, I don't know. If you're trying to make a meta sort of historical point, maybe the best thing that we can say with confidence is that none were found, right?
Yeah, that's basically what I'm saying.
What maybe Paul's getting at too, it's like kind of like it's really tough to say definitive answers even if you're 95% sure because there's always that 5% chance of error.
Yes, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Thank you.
True. I guess what I feel like is that this book, and I'm cool with that even. I think what I think is that this book is leaving us at a 50% chance of error. Still, and that I don't appreciate for what it is that the book is. Feels to me ultimately tackling.
But I guess the question that I would sorry Ben, but I'll just put this out there and then go. But
yeah.
I guess my question would be, what is the question that we are at risk of being in error of in the first place, right? Like when we talk about error rates and whatever, like, oh, we have a 50% chance or a 95% chance of being wrong about something, right? And I guess my question to you is, what is your sense of the something that we might or might not be wrong about here? Does that make sense?
Yes, but Ben, you can go and I'll answer.
Okay, so again, sorry to keep going back to process. If you don't like this book, that's totally fine. But go back to process of thought. Think about it. What Paul was talking about, the question like the absence of evidence, the evidence of absence. That was a very pivotal time in American history. What McElroy might be trying to do, because these characters, they're not past the fact of it, they're doing it. So he's capturing the almost paranoia and the unknown questions that we have during that time. And I think, so it can be frustrating that we don't have answers, but when you were living in that moment, we didn't have answers to that until years after the fact.
It's the classic Cheney line, right? The known unknowns and the known knowns, and then the Zizek addendum, right? The unknown knowns, right?
Yeah, so he's trying to capture maybe he's trying to capture the American consciousness of the time when we don't know, we can't get an answer, because that's what informed so many pivotal decisions of policy during that time period.
Okay, and that does actually help. I think what you just said. That being, if that were the case, or if that is the case, I would be more lenient. I think my immediate sort of negative reaction, and again, this isn't a overwhelmingly negative reaction.
Right.
I liked the book. I actually did. It's just that when describing conspiratorial behavior and manipulation, for whatever reason, for me, the idea that it's just unreconcilably a big question mark is not helpful. And helpful not in the sense of I need some fucking Tony Robbins fucking help actualizing and fucking knowing myself. It's that
shout out Jordan Peterson.
No. Yeah, please God.
No.
Whisper in, whatever the opposite of a shout out is.
I love Cannonball.
I thought the novel was really good. No,
it's like me, I don't give any answers now.
It's just that if you want to describe the situation as complicated, fair enough. And if you're trying to do a snapshot, which could be the theme, right, with photography and all this, of a moment in American history, then fair enough. But something sits uneasy with me when it, and I think this is contra somebody like Pynchon, who is actually trying to give you a roadmap with the books of being able to discern, exoteric versus esoteric sort of methods of interpretation and dealing with the fact that you are in fact being manipulated, right? And that it's not just going to get lost in the murkiness of your subjectivity.
I think that. Yeah, go ahead, Paul.
I was going to say, going back to Ben's Stonehenge metaphor, I feel what would a blueprint of Stonehenge, besides the actual layout of the stones, what would the blueprint of the thought process behind it look like? And it is a mystery. It is something that can't totally be pinned down.
I I guess I feel like there's a risk of getting wires crossed here in a certain way, right? Like we can talk about the Stonehenge metaphor, talking about the text, right? Like is the text itself this sort of mystery that is infinitely interpretable and is a bunch of question marks or whatever. And then we can also talk about the points that the text is arguably trying to make, right? And I do think, Matt, you have a point in the sense that, like, if we're talking about ideological mystification and misinformation and media conspiracy stuff, the entire concept of something like misinformation is predicated on there being a true information, right? On there being a reality of, what the misinformation is attempting to obscure. And I think that point is well taken. But I guess I wonder about, like, if we're talking about just the text as a sort of object, which I think maybe is the better or the closer relation to Stonehenge or something like that, I think the text itself can be a question mark without the themes and content themselves being question marks, if that makes sense.
I think I might know what Matt's discomfort is going for, because this is what happened to me with... Unless you want to answer that first, Matt, sorry.
No.
Okay.
This is a Destiny stream now. We're just we're debate bros.
No, I do like Destiny though. But I think the thing is also what I can relate, because this happened with Women and Men, because when you really read McElroy, it's not about like these conspiracies or plots and stuff like that. It's really about human interaction and the interpersonal relationship. That's his core. That's why I think Women Actors in the House is kind of underrated, because I feel like that's where he really crystallizes it. So if you weren't feeling that from the like the character interactions in this book, which is totally fair, then you're never gonna get that with like the quote unquote plot conspiracy part of it. Because that was my dissatisfaction with Women and Men. I wanted a lot of more of the sci-fi elements. I wanted more of like the weird techie stuff in there and stuff like that. Or the
sci-fi elements.
Yeah, but like the thing is, with Women and Men, the book was never really about that. The genre elements in McElroy are more of like sorry to say this, but like a diving board, a springboard to jump off and go into the more interpersonal stuff. So if the interpersonal stuff is not grabbing you, the genre elements are never going to be there to fulfill you in that way. And so if you have that, if that's where the dissatisfaction is coming from, I 100% understand that, because that happened to me with McElroy in a book or two.
Yeah, it's not, I feel like it varies. I feel like it's very specific to this one, and this is why I'm glad you can talk about it though, because like, it's in isolation. It's completely in isolation to anything else he's done. But my hunch is that something like Women and Men, which I assume is more on the psychological basis of like relationships. That's
to a
where
higher
this
degree, yeah.
Yes, that's where I feel like
reminds
this
me of
kind
Men Without Women by Murakami.
Oh, chill, dog, chill. It's literally the opposite. It's men and women.
Funny. Paper Birds teased a video about comparing those books at the beginning of the year, but the video hasn't come out yet, probably because it's incomparable. But I'm
Well, Gabe and I read Men Without Women, each short story for our YouTube.
Go to subscribe to the Spinecrackers YouTube channel and the Bookshore YouTube channel.
Oh, I'll subscribe to that tonight then. I didn't know about that. Nice.
Yeah.
We went through every short story. Yeah, it was good.
Oh, nice.
But only to say, that like the style, if it's repeated in every novel that I've encountered for Cannonball, seems more in service for something more human and less something sort of that could be concretized in something like geopolitics, I guess.
He gets a lot more human with his other novels. I think if you read Lookout Cartridge or Actress in the House, I think you would enjoy it a lot more.
I feel like it would crush it in those contexts, and it's just a shift to something as kind of immediate and memorable as the Iraq War for me personally. That it just sort of creates a dissonance with my own memories, ironically enough, or whatever.
That's interesting.
And I read all of McElroy, so I'm biased, and two, this book had to deal with Southern California culture, which really fit well because we have a lot of military people. So
Yes.
like if you're not connecting with it on that level, like absolutely, because some people were like, oh, you didn't like women and men, so like so if that's so I can totally understand why if you didn't like this novel, like I totally get it, but you know you have to be a very smart person and read all of Pynchon first to really get this novel.
Oh no! You're gonna do me like that, Ben.
Owned.
You're gonna do me like that.
The thumbnail is gonna be Matt owned by Ben
Yeah, just
with facts and logic.
Oh shit! Facts really do not care about my feelings right now.
there's only two genders. You either enjoyed your book, this book, or you're done.
Holy shit!
That's the extract quote. But
That's so good.
If I see like if you like Photoshop me in that change my mind thing, I'm blocking you guys.
Listen, I don't use Photoshop. I use meme editor apps on my phone.
Of course you do.
yeah.
yeah, to
Um,
get that unworked quality that seems
Yeah.
more genuine.
So
JPEG Jags.
can we talk a little bit about the inventor
Oh,
as a character?
I forgot about
Yeah.
him. He's mentioned in Women and Men.
Yeah. Oh, is that true?
It's implied.
What?
Oh my, yeah. Okay. Oh,
'Cause-
fuck.
okay, so just for the
McElroy
list,
Extended Universe?
yes,
Kind of. Not really.
Wait. So with the McElroy, it would just be MCU again, right? McElroy
Yeah.
Okay.
Cinematic Universe. So just for the listeners that are still with us, who are the Giga Chad spine crack heads, the inventor is this character who owns kind of like a secondhand junk shop or whatever that Zach and what's his name? His friend.
He's a really B-movie character out of nowhere.
Yes. And he owns this shop that Zach goes to as a kid and buys these envelopes from. Like, what the fuck is up with the envelopes? I want to flag that also. And his name is always capitalized in the text. Capital T, capital I, the inventor. And ultimately, Zach brings him back this scroll that he gets from the priest, and he translates it. And I guess I'm just like, what is the function of this character? Like, why is he in the story? Who is he? What's the vibe?
I had the same questions, and Women and Men. There was another character called the Inventor in Women and Men. I'm gonna disappoint you guys right now, much in like true McElroyian fashion. It's not an extended universe because things don't line up properly.
Damn it.
Yeah, because like the Inventor in Women and Men is kind of, if I remember correctly, I kind of forgot, but it's like this implied character that's constantly maybe reincarnated throughout history, and has a specific. But then there's also a specific person. Okay, here's the best example of the McElroy extended universe. Letters Left to Me is all about a letter that you only get snippets of throughout the novel. It's about a letter that a dad who died and leaves it to his son. In Heinz Kidnap, the main character who has a dad who's missing from his life, and he, just like with the character in Letters Left to Me, he gets that letter in college. But you actually read the letter. And I was like, oh shit, this Letters Left to Me is like the sequel to Heinz Kidnap. I compare the letter excerpts from Letters Left to Me to Heinz Kidnap. Different letters.
Well, also, but okay, right? Like, just to get fucking weird with it for a second, you know, if you're talking about in Letter Left to Me, where it's a dad leaving his son a letter or something, in Cannonball, Zach buys this envelope that he gives to his dad on his birthday that we don't know the contents of ever, I think.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, now if I'm doing MCU, McElroy Cinematic Universe stuff, is it the same letter? Who knows, right? Like,
There's a problem.
I'm sure it doesn't.
There isn't, because that one's in the past. But
Okay.
the problem was that in Women and Men, there was a character named Anziza and a character named the Inventor, and at one point they're both trying to learn how to control the weather and everything. The problem is that, and this is a big criticism towards Women and Men, they were so similar in characterization that in my head, I still get them mixed up on what they did and everything like that. But it's like this, and it's kind of like, I think it was Anziza the one who was reincarnated, it was the Inventor. So and there was a whole chapter with both of them together. I'm like, oh my god, these guys are like the same person, but I don't think in an intentional way. So I wish I could say more about that, but that part of my brain from Wham just kind of like left me a bit.
Yeah, he just like on a visceral level reading it. I don't know if you felt this way, Paul or Matt or whatever, but like he felt important to me, like the inventor, but like I could never piece together precisely what his role was.
You know what it's kind of like? You know, like in cartoons where they have like the junkyard person who builds stuff and everything. It's like it felt like they just like picked that aspect up and just put it in this realistic novel out of nowhere. Kind of like the scene with like when Umo jumps the pole and it explodes. It's like this Looney Tunes stuff that just comes out of nowhere and it's inserted into this novel. So no, the inventor feels. I had the same exact feeling. He feels very important, but very out of place. And it's not the same in Wham. He's very important, but you don't know directly how. But you know he's making all these scientific discoveries. You just can't place it exactly.
Yeah, I felt pretty dumb in my analogy of what I thought of him because it was mostly just like I was thinking of Resident Evil 5 with the guy that was like, "So what are you buying?"
Oh, that was 4.
What are you?
I think
that was 4.
I think that was 4.
I think that.
What are you selling?
What are you selling?
I saw a Let's Play at Resident Evil 4. I think that would be a better comparison for the priest. Like you just go fight this boss and he just comes out of nowhere.
Yeah, that's better.
Yeah.
Because I mean, the guy that was like selling you stuff actually had a purpose, and you could pinpoint it.
No, I'm not gonna fight you on that one. You want some Dead Sea Scrolls?
He opens up his trench coat and he's got like some Dead Sea Scrolls in it.
Jesus was a libertarian.
Libertarian.
Have you heard of
Jesus.
stigmata? These are the nails.
I like that. I feel like that is, in some ways, the most baffling part of the book. This character, the inventor. I don't know what to make of him.
He seems like
He's
the
Mr.
future.
Stonehenge.
He seems like the future as well for like some sort of American, like you were saying, almost Hamid present. Like he has that affinity with Umo for reasons that seem like they could be connected to just sort of foreignness and.
There was a moment when I was reading it when I thought the inventor was Umo's father somehow, but I don't think that's real.
Because he makes the pivotal translation of the little scrap of the scroll that he gets from the chaplain,
Right.
as well as seems to have some sort of like pseudo relationship with Umo way before Zach ever meets him.
Yeah.
And he has a curio shop too, which it's like I don't know if you can make that a metaphor, I guess, but just sort of like containing seemingly useless shit. I don't know.
I'm on the
Oh, that's interesting.
I'm on the Wikipedia for women and men because also the inventor always seemed like an old man, even from childhood to when they were adults in the novel. But yeah, I was right. He reincarnated. I was trying to like jog some memory. The inventor reincarnates himself every generation as his own nephew.
Oh.
So that's why you can
What?
probably have the inventor like from cowboy days and women and men and like present day like 19.
That's fucking dude. That's okay. McElroy cinematic universe confirmed.
Confirmed.
Yeah, because he's alive in 1893 in the book, so he does reincarnate himself and everything like that.
Whoa.
And like he's very
Okay.
scientific. He's working with Anza to like control the weather and whatnot, and like mapping up like cognition by the coastline.
Well, and in Cannonball, he speaks like 20 languages or something.
Yeah, he's always shown as a genius. However, to what ends is the question that we never get answered as well.
Yeah.
Wow,
Shit.
Macklemore is really good at writing.
Yeah, the Avengers in a thrift shop, so you know it works out.
Oh my god, that's fucking good.
I forgot about the inventor in Cannonball. Like he totally jogged my memory because I freaked out when I saw him in Wham. I was like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
So
Just to know that he was at all a recurring character is helpful for us because like we wouldn't have
Definitely.
gotten that otherwise, you know.
Right.
yeah, and I think it also there's a fondness to the character, so I'm guessing that's why he kind of put it in this book as well.
So he could be some sort of like trans-temporal almost like Buddha figure or a Dalai Lama kind
I
of
mean,
thing.
that's one of the plot points of Wham, where like two people get on this like this metal plate, and it has to be a man and woman to go up to the space station. They have to combine themselves into like a non-gendered being to be on the space station. So
Maybe the inventor is the real cigarette smoking man.
cigarette smoking.
Could
man.
be. X-Files?
I don't watch X-Files.
Oh, you should.
I was just thinking of the G-Man from freaking Half-Life.
No, yeah.
Yes.
There we go. And, like, there is a sense in which Zach, you know, after... I don't know how much time is supposed to have passed between his first and second tours and, like, post-high school. I don't really know...
I feel like it's a relatively short timeline. Like definitely within 10 years.
He never gets older than 25 to 30.
Yeah.
If I just had to take a guess. Yeah.
So it is about... Yeah, okay. So that's longer than I even thought, because I don't know why. I just, like... But he does kind of...
Well, you're right, Matt. He does enlist very young, right? Like
He's like right out of high school.
Yeah, like
yeah,
right
he's
out of high school.
17 years old, yeah.
So yeah, he can't be older than his early 20s by the time he re-enlists.
Which is common, like in here, you have they had that military people at high school, and I'm next to one of the largest military bases right now, actually. So that's why I felt like this was really apt for Southern California, because military culture is very big over here.
Yeah, and I think it's meant to be, and that the book itself is like meant to be like, look, you don't have a formulated conception of yourself or the fallout of what you're about to do, and like that's very important, and that's all part of the theme of manipulation and
Yeah. And if
authority
in my
figures.
I have that same view about a lot of the military people over here.
Yeah.
You're
They
right.
have no personality. You just a military.
Yeah, you're
Yeah.
17. You're 17. You get a boner and you go to the military.
Right.
Dude,
You can buy a car and you can go, you know, do a tour of service.
You know what they say, dude, about big guns?
big hunts.
What?
Yeah, big gun, big dick.
That's right.
Yes.
But then Zach does a kind of like intellectual development written very quickly, but just sort of like you get that sense towards the end that he's been reading a lot, which is not actually a sort of like, I don't think, the common experience, but he's talking about all these, he's talking about Mormonism and he's talking about Emerson
Yeah.
and all these I think very pointedly American intellects and movements and like sort of culturally significant figures. Still to arrive at what, I'm not sure.
I also just, speaking of like philosophical references and movements and stuff in the book, I did want to flag, you know, I mentioned Baudrillard earlier. The word rhizome is used a number of times in this book, and that's a philosophically loaded term
Yes, sir.
post Deleuze and Guattari, and I wondered if there's not a way that McElroy, his writing, is sort of rhizomatic. So the way Deleuze and Guattari use the term in this sort of like very, very like, you know, meme, like explain Deleuze and Guattari to me without dumbing it down or I'll kill you type way. You know, it's this sense of having like multiple equally sort of valid entry points and moving kind of fluidly. They talk about it in the context of politics, obviously, but literarily, I'm thinking about this book as like and memory as like rhizomatic in the sense that you can kind of jump in at any point.
Totally.
And it flows together in a sort of a system, but the entry point is not particularly important.
Well, that's a good point. Maybe that because like I agree with you completely because it's like also relates to that one chapter where it was out of order.
Yes.
And it didn't really matter. But also you guys brought up something. McElroy does that where I didn't see that as much as often as people said. Maybe I just missed it, but he'll just replace an off word. Like, oh, that's supposed to be another word. It's not supposed to be that. Oh, he'll find a word and just keep like, for an example, in Look At Car, somebody gets stabbed, like they take it off a car and they get stabbed with it. Like he gets stabbed with the aerial. I'm like, what the fuck is an aerial? And like me and Christopher Robinson on Instagram, he's read a lot of McElroy with the saying like, what's an aerial? Then we found out it's the British word for the antenna. So he does stuff like that where I missed the rhizo part, but he'll take a specific word and put it in a context that it's not so ghastly where it throws you off and the sentence doesn't make sense, but it doesn't exactly fit there as well.
Or he'll also he'll do something more overtly like jarring too, or he'll like have a sentence with italicized words, and when you read a sentence like that with like, them or I italicized, it's usually like certain writers like most normal writers will write it in a way that's like emphasizing that word, and you read it like naturally, but McElroy will do that and like emphasize like the quote unquote wrong words, like entirely on purpose.
My dad used to tell this dad joke. He would say he puts the emphasis on the wrong syllable.
Oh man, my dad used to say that too. Fuck, that's so funny.
That's
All
sick.
my dad told me was life sucks, then you die.
Damn.
Was your dad Biggie?
No.
Yeah.
But
Or Nas, yeah.
Oh yeah,
That's
Nas.
sweet advice though, because that's totally true.
It is. I don't mind him telling me that, but I was like talking the other day, like, why'd you tell me this in elementary school? But
Son, you're gonna have a lot of fun. You're 3 years old.
yeah, it's the best time of your life. But it doesn't.
And you're finally getting sober now at 3.
Yeah, you gotta get over it. I'm not 33 yet, but like a big thing with McElroy that I kind of realized through his writing is that, and maybe he does these things and I could be wrong about this too, but he wants to put a closer emphasis on the mundane and on the everyday. Because if you think about it, like, and he talks about Native Americans and everything, but there's a huge emphasis on corn, and they were seen as a spiritual object by the gods, and they prayed for it and worshipped it. Why? Because corn was like the bread and butter of their daily eating. So of course they had a lot of divinity in the mundane. Like in the Aztecs, they had the god of death, they had the god of rain, they also had the god for rugs, because rugs are important. If you think about so much of our daily lives, we don't place that importance on it. So I think McElroy, what he wants to do is put that importance and divinity back in the mundane. And maybe that's with him like highlighting certain words that we ordinarily would just be like filler content in a sentence that we don't think about. By putting that italics, it brings attention to that. And those words are important because if we didn't have that, the sentence just wouldn't flow properly structurally as is as well.
I just to push back on that a little bit. Like I get that from the literary perspective in terms of the writing, but in terms of the content, like a 350-pound like Mongolian dude doing a cannonball and causing an explosion and it triggering a conspiracy about lost dead, like that's about as far as from the mundane as you could possibly get, right?
I agree with you with this book, but once you get to like portions of McElroy talking about architecture of a city or farming seaweed, you might, it'll give you a different viewpoint.
Yeah, that makes sense.
It's not as present in this book. I absolutely agree with you on that one. And also, like, hidden Dead Sea Scrolls is the furthest thing from mundane you can possibly think of. So,
And also, like, it felt like maybe one of the themes for this specifically is also just the inadequacy of language and like the kind of, again, like we said earlier, lost in the sauce. There's so many things that just sort of even are homonyms that kind of sound like the same word, and there's a lot of emphasis on people sort of like saying things that if you said aloud, kind of like Finnegan's Wake, would create a pun or some sort of other word, and how that creates confusion also, and all this.
It's funny you say about the homonym thing, because he does that with names. There's so many names in other books where you get confused because they sound similar to other people's names.
Yes.
Like when they're saying exactly and they keep saying exactly.
Yes,
and that
Zach
sounds like,
exactly, yes.
And it sounds like Zach, the essence of Zach himself.
I'm about
and yeah.
to
Well, this
end
is
this conversation.
to bring in another postmodern philosopher, right? This is also one of Derrida's sort of fundamental insights, or one of his jokes that he likes to do. Like literally, the whole term hauntology,
Right.
was a play on the fact that in French, ontology and hauntology would be pronounced essentially exactly the same way. And that there would be no way to distinguish between the two in spoken word.
Interesting.
Yeah. I think that's just another element at play here.
Yeah.
It's going to be funny because somebody's going to buy this book and read the first 5 pages, like, yo, man, these sentences are not that hard. What are they talking about?
I know.
That's the thing is like again, yeah, to circle fully, the language of the book on a just kind of like I don't know thesaurus level is not that difficult. We might want to segue maybe to the Scrabble word portion of
Yes. Okay. So all
I
right,
remember this.
Oh
right.
fuck! I forgot.
Ben. Will
I did not.
I did not either.
We didn't tell Ben about it either. So
Well,
we're gonna skip
I'm
it.
telling him now. So you don't have to participate in this segment, but we have a few closing segments on the show, Ben.
Oh, I thought you were talking about something in the book. Like, I do not remember this.
No,
So,
no.
I was like,
So we do a segment where we think of a word from the book that would be a good Scrabble word.
Cannonball.
That would be a great boom. Spoiler alert.
That's a good one.
No, just kidding. Go. So a good Scrabble word.
Yeah, either, interpreted broadly, right? Either a word that you didn't really know, that was new,
Oh, okay.
or just one that would be good for Scrabble.
You're gonna ask me this like a year after I read this book.
I know.
It's unfair.
You get a pass. You get a pass if
You do get a
can't
pass.
find one.
But
Matt-
I'll use my one from Lookout Cartridge, Ariel.
Yes. Okay. Accepted.
Nice.
Well, how do you spell it? Spell it.
Ariel, I think.
Ariel, or is there an E in there?
I said E.
A-E.
Yeah.
Is there?
Ariel.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Okay.
Let me check.
What
I'll
are
double
the,
check it.
I also, Gabe, you know the points of the letters better than I do.
Oh no, I spelled it wrong. It's Aerial. My bad.
Yeah.
Oh
I'm a,
yeah.
I'm a shit speller. I'm gonna let you know right now.
That's all right.
Join the club.
Yeah.
Cool.
All right, Matt. You said you prepared. What's your word?
Well, mine is Onyx.
Like a
It's a
Pokemon.
great Scrabble.
Yeah. I think it's actually spelled the same. O-N-Y-X. Yeah.
It's spelled exactly the same. Yeah.
Short and sweet. A lot of value. If you can get it, So
YX.
Onyx.
That's fucking
Whew, baby.
money.
Yeah.
All right,
Yeah.
so mine is it's on page 221, and it is Kilim, K-I-L-I-M, which is apparently a type of Middle Eastern rug,
Cool.
and yeah, K, M, those are both good letters. L is I think 2 points. So
Well, you want to think of
it's both a word that I didn't know and one that would generate some decent Scrabble value.
I just went on that page and I saw a word from there. It was Ziploc, a kind of American bag.
an American
That-
bag.
American
We're in
bag.
American bag.
Hey, if you can't kill animals, why do we even have it?
Yeah.
Paul, did
All
you
right.
have one?
Ball.
No, I'm passing.
Okay.
Hard
Well, this
pass.
is your segment, so.
Yeah, you.
My
made it, so-
segment. But yeah, I don't have one. I'm passing.
Okay, then we'll move on. Ben, I don't know if you know this segment, but this is a fan favorite. Assuming we have fans, where
I'm right here.
Yeah, come on now.
yes, King, yes, King. Where we
You're a wizard, Harry.
where we justify talking about Harry Potter by the fact that we just read another book that's better than Harry Potter.
Yeah, we just did read another.
We
book,
literally
so-
just read another book, so we
we're
get to talk
allowed.
about Harry Potter now.
Okay, I'll start off. This is why you should read Cannonball, because Harry Potter is garbage trash and like you're under the in fifth grade.
What?
Whoa.
Dude,
If
it's
if
pulp
you're watching this podcast
brilliance.
to listen about Harry Potter, you need to reevaluate things in your life, get on, and become a fucking adult.
So much breaking
Dude.
news on this podcast.
Hey, if you like Harry Potter, why don't you try Infinite Jest while you're at it?
Oh shit! They're the
Dude.
same.
Ben.
That's fucking spicy.
Oh, and I'm canceled.
You are
Bro.
canceled.
Yeah, you're canceled.
We're trying to grow our brand, and you're out here throwing fucking wrenches in the works.
Dude, you're as canceled as J.K. Rowling. You're in the same boat.
Oh, I'm a turf exclusionary in the sense of Harry Potter. And well, listen, if you can dodge a wrench, you can dodge a ball.
And in this
you know,
case, the ball is a bludger from fucking Quidditch, and we're gonna do Harry Potter.
So angry comments to youtube.com/bookshore if you know.
Yes.
That's true. Yeah, direct your hate there.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hate subscribe to Bookshore.
Right.
Wait, so Ben, do you even know the Harry Potter houses then? Are you like, because we have to do this.
It's Dumbledore. It's my brother was a huge Harry Potter fan. I read like the last book and maybe like the third one. I saw all the movies. It's Hufflepuff, Gryffindor, Slytherin, and
Ravenclaw.
Bird.
Ravenclaw.
Yes.
Yeah. But let's be honest, like they never talk about Hufflepuff or Ravenclaw at all.
That's
True, but we do.
But
Part
we
of the
do.
controversy we address. Yeah.
I took a Harry Potter quiz one time, and I got Gryffindor and I got a unicorn wand.
Ooh.
I was
What?
Nice. I think I'm a main character. Like, fuck that shit. Man. They're fighting Death Eaters and everything. Let me pass my potion class and just go work at a community college.
I'm sorry, dude.
Community college Harry Potter professors.
I don't
That's so good.
I don't want to be wrapped in with all that nonsense. Fuck that.
It's too
I took
late.
one
You
once.
already qualified.
No, damn.
I was a Gryffindor. I had a dolphin as a Patronus,
See, that's
and my
cool.
wand was 13.5 inches long, which is very, very accurate, I must say.
Oh man, my friend sent me this thing on 4chan one time. Like, have you ever heard of dolphin orgasm?
I've
Yes.
never heard it. I know they have orgasms.
Okay,
but
Matt, you've heard it, right?
Yeah.
Did you hear it?
Oh, I mean, I've heard of the story about the Jane Goodall type person who masturbated dolphins.
A
I thought that's
dolphin.
what you're talking
It
about.
was a guy sucking one off. But anyway, a dolphin orgasm is like the most terrifying sound on the planet.
Can we do
Ugh.
it? Can you do it?
Yeah.
I
Okay.
can pull it up. I'll pull it up. Wait. I
Yeah,
can't
pull up
do
the.
this,
Let's
never
pull up.
mind.
Let's pull up the audio and just
So-
get it.
I already got canceled with the Harry Potter thing, so.
Let's go full hog.
Yeah.
So
Speaking of Hog, you guys got to read that book.
I know.
Full dolphin hog.
So while Ben is pulling up the audio of Dolphin Orgasm, the point of this segment is that we take all the characters from the book we just read, not all, but the main ones, and put them into Harry Potter houses.
Okay.
So, where should we start with
First
Cannonball?
off, are you gonna put the inventor in a house, or is he gonna be like one of the?
I would say we should.
We should establish who should be housed.
So certainly Zach, Umo, Emily. I think the inventor
And the dad, I think.
and the dad. Yeah.
I think that's it. I think that should be it, though.
All right, let's do that.
There's Liz and the driver chick and stuff, but what?
Yeah, his childhood girlfriend and yeah.
So I'm gonna start up straight with. Let's do the dad.
Yeah.
Dad is Slytherin.
Explain.
He's self-interested. He's like the dad that if he weren't embroiled in weird governmental conspiracies, he would be the dad that would just be like, I'm gonna make model airplanes and drink in the garage and not deal with my children, because he just seems to kind of want to just be like a coach, but a winning coach, and he had it seemed Olympic aspirations at one point, and he just seems very self-involved.
Explicitly.
Yeah, just very self-involved. Everything he's doing to the instrumentalization of his son is for his own gain.
Okay.
Well, it also
Compelling.
adds to the family lineage thing. My family has to be strong, Slytherin.
That's very Slytherin.
True.
Family, bloodlines and all that stuff.
Of course, the guy with the 13-inch wand is talking about bloodline.
Yeah.
Yo, any girls out there that want to have a little taste of my 13-inch wand?
Jesus Christ.
Wow. How many
What do you
how many times can this podcast
That
be
wa-
removed from the internet?
That wasn't a sexual metaphor. It was my wand that I do
Yeah.
magic with. What are you talking about?
Pectrum Patronus is not a sexual.
I think there's actually like a big spectrum, like a big juxtaposition between having a dolphin as my Patronus and my wand being that big.
Right.
Yeah, that was
Kind of sucks. It kind of evens it out, right?
One of the few sex for pleasure creatures on Earth, but yeah.
So, Paul, are you Slytherin for the dad?
Yes, yeah. I agree with everything Matt said, and the added aspect of him wanting his family to be strong, that adds to my Slytherin.
Yeah, the family lineage thing pushes me over the edge into Slytherin for sure.
Yeah.
Ben, what do you think?
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Tight.
All right,
It's
Ben.
Harry Potter's stupid.
You guys are wasting your time.
I think he's a Quidditch.
Well, there is something called the snitch.
He's
No,
not
squib.
a snitch, though. Squib.
No, the
Well, there
what's
is a snitch. Yeah, that's
Yeah, but that's
ball
like a
in
ball.
Quidditch.
That's like
that's
a
not a
flying
house.
golden
You
ball.
can't be
Well, Ben
a
said
snitch.
Quidditch. I was making a joke like Ben did, and you guys aren't
Okay.
laughing though.
Well,
Whatever.
His
No.
was funnier, so.
Well,
You know.
fuck-
Hey, Ben,
fuck y'all.
we have an opening on the podcast.
Fuck y'all, dude.
Oh no, I'm trying to be professional out here.
Are you implying that we're not professional? Excuse me.
I don't have to imply it, but
I'd say the sister.
That was
next,
never the
then.
goal.
All right, let's talk about Emily.
Yeah.
well, it should be Ginny because a close family friend wants to be with her.
Okay.
You know so much more than
Okay,
you're
yeah,
letting
you
on.
know about
You
Harry
like-
Potter.
You love Harry
Don't
Potter.
lie, dude.
You
Don't
love it.
lie.
Listen,
You
this
love
hate-
Harry Potter.
Hatred. This is not racism. This hatred does not come out of ignorance out here.
Right. It's genuine in the sense that it's informed.
It's
Yeah.
studied. It's studied
Yeah.
hatred.
I hate those Brits. No.
Dude, I'm with you.
Yeah, those Brits do suck.
I feel like Emily is Ravenclaw. Pretty hardcore.
Why?
She. No, that's Hufflepuff. No, don't tell Paul. Paul defends Hufflepuff.
I do.
Because he is one.
No,
That's not true.
I feel
I'm a
like
Gryffindor.
Emily's role in the story is she has this kind of intuitive, intellectual understanding of things that she, communicates to Zach in kind of esoteric, obscure ways. And to me, that just feels and there's a few scenes where she's depicted as sitting at Zach's talking with his dad or whatever, and she's sitting off in the corner reading a book or something, and she interjects a comment or two, and that just gives me Ravenclaw energy.
Okay.
I'm gonna agree. I think she just sort of represents a sort of Sophia I don't know. Yeah, almost feminine intuition form of
Right.
of knowledge, knowledge seeking and knowledge ability just about what's going on at any given moment.
Okay. I agree. Ravenclaw.
Ben, thoughts?
Hufflepuff.
Ooh.
I have no idea. I'm just gonna go agree with whatever you guys say.
No, you're Hufflepuff.
Huh?
We got
I always
Hufflepuff
think-
from you.
I always think of a dessert when I hear Hufflepuff.
Oh my God! Yeah, like a little like French pastry or something.
I will
Ooh.
say I went to the Harry Potter place at Universal with some friends one time,
Oh,
and
shit.
the ride was pretty cool, and the Butters beer, whatever they have, that was really good
Butterbeer.
tasting.
That sounds so good. I want to
would-
go so bad.
I only wanted to go on one ride, and that was a Transformer ride, and it fucking broke when I went on it.
No.
Megatron stabbed Optimus Prime, and then all the sound cut off. I'm like, oh, he's dead.
No, dude.
And I'm a Transformers, not the movies, but I like Transformers in general. And after that, Optimus was talking to us, right, and his lips moving, but there was no sound. It's like,
Oh, that's surreal.
yeah. But the Harry Potter ride was really cool. There's this one where you're inside, and the animation and everything is amazing. So
Sick. Well, what's butterbeer taste like? Is it just like melted butter?
no, it doesn't even taste like butter. Oh god, I had something to compare it to, but
I imagine that it tastes like something like cream soda or something.
yeah, it was like the best. Imagine the best cream soda you would ever have.
I love
like
cream
that.
soda.
Yeah, that's what it was. It was like cream soda. So, if you ever go to Universal over here, definitely check out it was one of the coolest part of Universal Studios, to be honest.
That's
All right.
awesome. All right, let's talk about Umo, our boy Umo.
Okay.
Gryffindor, dude. Easy clap, Gryffindor.
Yeah.
Yeah, because they had that other Chinese girl there.
What?
Cho Chang.
Yeah.
He's talking about Cho Chang because he secretly knows
Oh,
so
yeah,
much
dude,
about
I
Harry Potter.
know. Oh,
Well, no, he doesn't because she
he's-
was actually a Ravenclaw.
Is that true?
Oh, the
Yeah.
Ravenclaw's my answer. I'm dying on this hill.
So everyone, Harry Potter houses are racially obligated.
Yes, they're actually segregated. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm just saying.
Yeah.
Hogwarts is actually Little Rock Central High School in Arkansas. Desegregation.
Why do you think they have so many bathrooms up there?
Dude, that's like the 1950s version of Harry Potter.
Yeah.
Segregated
good.
bathrooms.
Okay, wait.
Zach.
So, wait. Zach, yeah. Hufflepuff?
Yeah, I think I'm gonna go Hufflepuff.
He's kind of just like generally confused and doesn't really have like any sort of strong. I mean, I guess he has a moral code, but it's not really like operative in his behavior in any way.
Yeah. Ultimately, he's just Hufflepuff. He's like, just sort of like what I'm familiar with. Even after he's sort of like expanded his knowledge base and inquired and kind of, you know what I mean, like and questioned his situation, he still seems to like not change his behavior in any way.
Or is he Slytherin because he wants to preserve his bloodline by fucking his sister?
Fuck. Shit.
Or is he Gryffindor because he is brave enough to be like, Dad, I want to go to war.
I thought you
Yeah.
were about to say brave enough to be.
Or is he Slytherin?
To be
Married
like,
his
I
sister.
love. Yeah, because everyone that has a sister wants to have sex with them and marry them. Yeah.
Or is he Slytherin because like the higher ups wanted to sacrifice him?
Oh, shit.
Nah, he's Ravenclaw.
Or is he a squib?
I'm going to stick with my initial reaction. As I'm going with Hufflepuff.
Yeah, me too.
I'm
too.
yeah, me too.
All right. That's a quad puff, dude. That's 10 points for Hufflepuff.
All right, moving on to ratings. Dib's not first. I'm gonna go to the bathroom.
All right, fine. All right, so Ben, I don't know how you feel about this in general, but we do give numerical scores at the end of every episode for the books. And to break down the rating system that we use, you know, it's 1 through 5 with you know, whatever infinite variations with decimal points and all that.
Right.
And roughly it works like this. Like 1, anything between 0 and 1 is like your life is worse for having read this book.
Ooh,
right? Like
okay.
this reading this book actively made your life worse. 1 to 2 is, you know, some redeeming qualities, but like overall like would not do it again, etc., etc. 2 to 3 is, you know, good, right? Like average to above average, like good book, like
Yeah.
positive things to say about it. 3 to 4 is good. 3 to 4 is good to excellent, right? 4 plus is very good, right? Like 4 plus is like excellent book.
Transcendent.
Yes, I would recommend it, etc., etc. And then 5, like a full 5, is, you know, literally life changing. Like when I think about my life, there is a before this book and after this book. You know, that sort of thing.
Can I give it a Ben out of 10?
A what? A Ben out of 10?
It's about a B minus.
10 out of 10. A B minus.
Yes.
Okay, I based on the I don't give ratings, but based on the ones you gave, I'd probably give it like a 4 or 4.5, and that's only because if we're talking about transcendent like before and after,
Yeah.
in the context of McElroy, that would be Lookout Cartridge. So there's a before me reading Lookout Cartridge and an after me
Okay.
reading Lookout Cartridge. But this one is nowhere near on the scale of Lookout Cartridge. However, I do feel like this is one of McElroy's better books, and it's very special to me just because I enjoyed it on a personal level, and it opened the gate to McElroy for me.
Right, like this was your first one, right, on the
This
journey.
was it. Yeah, it was what cannonballed me into him. Yeah.
All right, I'll go next. Paul said, because traditionally the person that picks the book gets to go last, which is Matt in this case. So I'll go next because Paul called dibs not. I would say I was waffling a lot on this book. As I was reading it, there were moments where I was like, "Damn, I really love this," and then there were, after I finished it, there were moments of being like, "What just happened and why did it happen?" And I don't necessarily know if I like that it happened. I think my hang up still, to go back to a point that I think I made earlier, is about this kind of phenomenological psychological realism, where if you're gonna do that, and maybe we'll have to have you back on, Ben, to talk about Infinite Jest down the road.
I mean, I'll be on that for that if you want me to.
Okay, yeah. Because you know, I actually enjoy that book, at least so far. I'm literally, a sixth of the way through or something. But in the sense that if you're gonna do the like deep dive psychological phenomenological realism thing, I want to be invested and interested in the characters whose minds that I'm diving into.
Right.
And I didn't necessarily feel that with Zach in this book.
I can see that. Yeah.
And so, I absolutely respect McElroy's talent as a writer and the way that he plays with language and fucks around with our reading versus speaking and all of that. So for me, it's right at like a 3.72. I'll say.
Okay. I don't know where that 2 came from, but okay.
It's just it's because we all want to be it's just because we all want to be Anthony Fantano.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Well, our rating system tends to like go deep into like 3 point something.
Yeah.
Got it.
We dive into it.
If it's 3.7, got it. 3.72, like that's very specific.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we read so many books that it ends up like actually mattering, I think, a little bit. Like we'll look back and be like, oh, I give this one a 3.12 and this is a 3.01.
I can see that because with ratings, sometimes people like, well, you gave this a 4, you gave this other thing a 4, you gave it a 3. It does, but when you get to the decimal points, it would probably make a bit more sense and everything like that.
Yes.
I can't wait to go to the billionth place. Yeah.
So my turn because Matt's last, right?
Yes.
That's right. Go, Pablo.
Well, I had like, I had the actual reading experience for this book for me was like torturous, to be honest. Like it was. I mean, I had to read it really quickly because I procrastinated, so that added to the torture.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it goes against everything I like, writing style wise, from a writer, like. Totally. It's just like I didn't enjoy actually reading the book. But I mean, I don't know. I think back to like when I first listened to the Blood Brothers in high school and I hated them so much.
I hated that band too.
But after like a month, I was like, because like Gabe and Matt loved them, and I was like, why do I not like them? And I kept listening, and then suddenly I was like, oh, I like understand the language they're trying to get across, and like I actually still love them to this day. Like I think, and I kind of equate writers like this to that experience I have. Like I tend to like be faced with a new art form, and I hate it initially, and then I'll like, but I don't like blacklist it. I'll tend to like give it the benefit of the doubt and be like, or at least recognize that someone was trying to like make an artistic statement, which I think McElroy was. So as I read this, I was like trying to decipher how he was writing and why he was writing the way he was. And I kind of walked away with like this impression that he actually is like a true artist. Like he found his own way of doing something, and he has like his own rules almost, and he follows them, and he makes something unique out of those rules, and it's not enjoyable at all for me. But I also walked away thinking like I would read another one of his books because like maybe someday I'll understand and like actually jive with the writing style more. And I can't like graze over someone who I recognize as being so against the grain and so like artistically inclined and just like blacklist them. I can't do that. And also I think like thematically I like the open-ended storytelling. I like the coincidental nature of the story. So I like that was actually my favorite part of the whole thing. But because like my initial just first reading through was so torturous, I can't rate it too high. But I'm gonna give it like a solid 3.7. I'll say.
Really quick side, the Blood Brothers thing. The band that was like that for me was the Number 12 Looks Like You.
Oh yeah.
Yes.
I hated that band. But
I haven't
just
heard
loved
them
so much. I learned a bunch of their songs on guitar. So yeah.
Yes, you're kind of like a metal guy, right, Ben? Like that's kind of your background. Yeah.
Metal. I played a lot of metal earlier on and everything.
Hell yeah.
Who you fucking with these days?
Oh, awesome.
Who do I fuck with? I've been getting into a lot of pop punk. So I like the Wonder Years right now, and there's a band named Napoleon that's really cool. Reflections is a band that I want to love, but the new album is just so chuggy. I just couldn't get into it that much.
Man, I'm trying to think like the only new kind of quote unquote metal that I'm definitely a sunbather. What the fuck is
Oh yeah.
an apologist for those people? What are they called again?
Post rock kind of thing.
Yeah, it's like California
Same.
I like post rock a lot.
Yeah, the hardcore
shoegaze
post-hardcore.
metal or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah, the gent scene, there's some cool stuff in it, but like, it's so repetitive to me. There's so many of the bands, like Animals as Leaders. Like, I was like, oh, this is a cool ass lick, and then they repeat it for like 16 times, and I'm just like, oh my god, I just can't listen to this anymore.
Yeah, I know. Just like the dominating lick, the benevolent dictator lick of a song.
I really like the song Woven Web. Like that's I think one of their best songs. But if you really break that song down, there's only like 3 or 4 licks throughout the whole entire song. So, yeah,
well,
okay. What's your rating, Matt? And remember, you can't give it under a 4 if you haven't read all the Pension yet. So.
Fuck, dude.
I do fuck with Daughters. The Daughters album is fire to me.
You fuck Daughters?
Oh shit! Fuck! God damn it!
Hey man, this is the McElroy podcast, not the Delaney one.
Yeah. Incest meets ephebophilia.
If you think about it, every person you've ever had sex with is a daughter.
Yeah, of course. That's literally the truth.
So you do fuck with daughters.
Yes.
Nice.
I did.
Cool.
I did tell my first girlfriend, I'm like, you're not even my biological girlfriend.
Yo. That's a mindfuck kind of.
Yeah, that's mental.
Yeah. Oh, can
Joker-fied
I make a quick side
McElroy.
tangent? I'm surprised I never got punched for this, but I had this really bad joke like early college where I'd meet people and they'd tell me about their girlfriend. I'm like, oh, you have a girlfriend, man? It's like, yeah. Is she single? And they would just, every time, they would just freeze. And, like, sometimes be like, I hope not. Their brain just stopped every time I said that. I should have got a fights.
Dude, that's a good college move.
Yes.
Psyoping your friends.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, okay.
All right, Matt. No more stalling.
I know I need the requisite full reading of every McElroy and Pynchon book in order to actually give a correct numerical value to
And
this
a full
book.
understanding of Rick and Morty as well.
Oh, shit. Fuck. No, okay. I'm gonna give this book a 3.4. I'm gonna. It had some beautiful turns of phrase, but I just stand by what I said earlier, which is that like this this realism in capturing the psychological I don't know, textures of being a certain age and like living through a kind of weird political almost manipulation through authority figures and to me the interpolations of memory and like whatnot bogged down, like I said before, kind of what seemed to me a different kind of narrative than was serviced by the style. I will 100% try and be reading like eventually maybe everything also that McElroy wrote. I'm not at all turned off. Again, this is important to say. Like I'm not at all turned off by like McElroy. And I really want to read the rest of his stuff, and I think he's important. But yeah, something didn't marry in the two, in the style meets the form and function didn't match or something like that. So beyond trying to get too bogged down in particulars, I'm gonna give that a 3.4.
You know, it's funny. Like you guys had all.
I love that for you.
Yeah, y'all had kind of the same rating, and I kind of for the same reasons also. And I was just checking my YouTube channel because like the book I felt like I really understood McElroy on was Actors in the House. Let me check one more thing really quickly. And that was my 4th book by him. So it took just to say it's not like I'm some like, oh yeah, I understood it completely from the beginning. It took me a while to really grasp everything he's trying to do and everything. And
yeah. Sorry,
finish
with that. No, I was just going to say that's why I think we were all so glad to have you on this episode because, McElroy strikes me as a writer where I don't want to say that the sort of like I forget the phrase is blanking on me right now, but where like the sum it's greater than the sum of its parts or something, right? But like he clearly has like an overall worldview and sort of like Paul was sort of saying, like an artistic approach that becomes kind of emergent over time, right?
Yes.
He's not someone that you can just read one book of and have a total view of.
Correct.
It's like a Lynch kind of connection here for me too.
Yeah.
With that.
And that's why it's kind of like I don't even like to call myself the McElroy expert sometimes because it's just like I feel like every McElroy book I've read, after I read it, it's like, cool, I need to reread this in the future. Because I'm sure like if you guys would read Cannonball, same with me, I need to reread Cannonball also. Knowing all the things you know now, like it'd probably be a much different experience because there's so much that's so easy to lose at a moment's notice.
True.
Well, I think it points to one of the cons of how we read books too. Is that like we want to have like a big like difference between writers too, so we won't come back to a writer for like maybe months. We've read like a couple Simonon books, but
I think we've only reread
any...
like 2 people or maybe only one.
Yeah.
And that's part of I think what is good about our podcast too is like we're trying to like be diverse with our writers, but I also think.
But going from like the Pearl to like McElroy is a big jump in like literature and everything.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely.
You could say there's no rhyme or reason to what we're doing.
Yes. But it might. It kind of doesn't suck, but it kind of like it doesn't really devalue a writer, but like if we were to read all of McElroy's, which we're not going to do on the podcast, but we'd have like probably a better interpretation of him, obviously. But that's
it's also just like a format thing, right? Like and anyone who's listening at this point in the podcast, subscribe to the Patreon and obviously subscribe to Bookshore on YouTube.
Oh, thanks.
But the way we do this, we record weekly and, trying to tackle something like Women and Men or even some of his other, shorter than that, but also still long novels, it's difficult because you have to kind of schedule it like months ahead of time and be like, oh, I'm going to read, we all have to read 30 pages a week while also reading other books. to keep the content flowing into the mouths of our hungry pig audience.
Well, if you look at my YouTube channel with the McElroy Marathon, and if you actually look at like the timestamps of the videos and what videos I was putting out, especially doing women and men, there was a lot of gaps. There was a lot of filler content.
Right.
like,
Yeah.
like after Women and Men, I finished that book. Like, you know what? I don't feel like reading. I'm just gonna watch Kitchen Nightmare for a little while.
Yes.
So like
Watch
no,
some
like,
Squid Game.
yeah, or some Squid Games. So like no, absolutely. Like if you're doing it weekly, I could have probably done the McElroy Marathon if I was reading every day in a much smaller time period. But I was burnt, and especially the last two books, I had to take a huge break before I read Ancient History and Night Souls because I was just so burnt out on it.
Yeah.
You don't want to do
Yeah.
that kind of thing. Like it actually, like Paul, you said, you were in a time crunch. That shit just sours you too in a way that you wouldn't normally be.
Yes.
I think I would have liked Women and Men
Yeah.
a lot more because I know a guy who spent it over the time of the year read it, but like Women and Men was like my 7th McElroy book, so and it's like the longest book in American fiction.
Yeah.
So it's like he's like, yeah, no one had a bit of a negative viewpoint of this book.
Yes.
But yeah, like and I like this last book. I'm proud to say I read all of it under a year. I think that's cool. But also, I'm tired of I'm 30 now. I'm over like that triathlon aspect of reading. So my next 2 marathons, Virginia Woolf and Samuel Delaney, I'm not going to worry about
Fuck
doing
yeah.
that within the time of a year or anything like
Yes.
Fuck yes.
Yeah.
We,
All right.
Hey, if you want to come on for another Virginia Woolf book, we already did Mrs. Dalloway, but if you want to come on for another one once you get into that.
I need to reread The Lighthouse, and that's only a 200-pager.
Bruh, that's
That-
one of my favorites.
would fit.
So,
Oh,
yeah.
there you go.
that would
I read
fit.
it once. I need to read it. Problem with Virginia Woolf, and this is not a problem with her, it's a problem with me. I see the page count, like I can do this shit like in a week or something, but she
Right.
needs I think she's underrated, even though she's so well known. She needs
100%.
just as much attention as Pynchon or McElroy.
Yes.
Yes, dog.
And the thing that's difficult with her is that she's not referential. All of her writing is so insular. So if there was a Virginia Woolf guidebook, I have no idea what you'd even fucking put in it.
Yes.
What's
Yeah.
funny is that when you talk about stream of consciousness, it's Joyce and her that get
Yeah.
mentioned in the same breath as some of the reviews of McElroy I've been reading. And it's very funny to me because it's like I can see the difference. Also, she did not really like Joyce, so it's
No,
just
she
like
hated
No, she hated
Yeah.
Joyce, like full on hated Joyce.
So I just love all of that like complication to even that simplification and kind of like grouping narrative within the review for McElroy shit.
Yeah,
It's like
it-
so weird.
It's funny because like you look at them, and it's like speaking of brother and sister, like they have a very brother and sister dynamic. Like you guys are so similar to
Yeah.
each other.
Yeah, right. You're trying to do the same thing, but you don't
Yeah.
like what that you are. Yeah.
yeah. But no, I really had enjoyed being on here. This was a blast.
Thank you so much, Ben. Yeah,
Appreciate it,
this was great, and I think it was the perfect time for you to come on for this book.
Yeah, you can delete that dolphin segment if you want to.
Oh no, we don't delete anything.
Okay, cool. I don't want.
Nope.
I was making sure, like I said that, like I don't think they're too hype on that. So if they want to get rid of it, I'm fine with that. But I said everything I said on here, I'm fine with being in public.
So people can find you at Bookshore on YouTube.
Yep.
What's your Instagram handle? Where else can people find you?
It's Bookshore Ben. Wait. What is mine? Oh yeah, it's Bookshore_Ben for Instagram. It's just in my YouTube videos and books I haven't been reading this past week. I've been so busy with work, but I'm reading 2 gas books so I can read The Tunnel, and I've been trying to finish up Vits by Joshua Cohen.
Oh shit, dude.
Nice.
You don't stop.
No, but I have a lot of criticisms with that book. I've taken breaks from it and everything, so it's not going to be the most positive view, even though there's some amazing aspects of that book. But
Not a fan of Cohen myself either, yeah.
really, this is my
You
first-
heard it here first on the Spine Crackers podcast.
Yeah, his language, I love it, but like nothing's happening in that damn book. And for 800 pages, it's just infuriating.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Did you read Vits as well?
No.
Okay. What were
Fuck
some
no.
of your problems with Cohen, really quickly?
I read the Netanyahus, which he recently came out with. I read the Book of Numbers. I read Moving Kings, and I read the short story collection he came out with.
Well,
And
you did a lot more than me, yeah.
I'm gonna keep giving him. This is the thing, is like, it's a strange position to be in, but it's just like, I see the artistry and I see the value, and I almost don't care that I dislike the experience in a sense. Like I see somebody who's doing something that's not common in their tackling of certain things and whatever. But at the same time, it's like, yeah, it's like, bro, like it's so pointy headed and dry and like, and it's dry. It's dry while he's trying to do something that is just not supposed to be. Like by his own design, like by his own intentions, he's not wanting this effect, and I can tell. But like he's getting it out of me, or I don't know.
You're saying the exact thing I'm experiencing with another friend of mine, Christopher Robinson experience, where it's the book is some sort of masterpiece in the level of prose and what he's trying to do and everything, but on a plot and scene by scene level, it's like you can exactly, you can tell like he wants it to be like a really funny kind of like
comedy
kind of humor
is,
book, but it's just not funny, and it's just so like dude, just get on with these fucking scenes. I don't care.
Yeah, dead on the page. The Netanyahu's is probably my favorite thing I've read so far, but yeah.
I really want to read that. I really want to read the Netanyahu's. That's been interesting. That seems interesting to me. All right, well, this is the rest of this conversation is Patreon only.
Right.
So thank you all for listening. Thank you, Ben, again so much for coming on for this book.
I really enjoyed going.
And hopefully you can come back. We can talk about Virginia Woolf or whoever.
You guys got to hog.
Yes, I would love to.
Yeah.
I'd love to.
Okay.
Spine hogs.
Bareback.
Spine hogs signing off.
Barebacks. We're the bareback spine hogs.
Yeah.
And we appreciate y'all for giving your ear holes a nice opening.